All right. Hello, comic troopers. Welcome to the Weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris, and this is a show all about the latest week's comic books and comic book news. It's going to be a heck of a show. I've decided, why not? I'm going to make this a spectacular episode by just having tons of interesting topics and very informed and exciting opinions. So get ready for that. Let me put up a ticker. This is all the stuff we'll be talking about tonight. Quite a bit. So we're going to do news. We're going to do reviews. And then we're going to just do some cool down inking and chatting about, comic book related media. That's what the agenda is tonight. And if you didn't get an alert, a new Comic Tropes episode went up this morning, and for some reason the algorithm isn't pushing it out. It just clearly isn't, but I'm very proud of it, and the response from the people that have seen it has been fantastic. So it's all about Sanford Green and Bitterroot. I just think he's an artist that mixes style and substance in a meaningful and exciting and cool way. So a little plug for myself, and we'll start saying hello to some of the feeks. Well, we'll say hello to the folks, but we'll also say hello to the feeks. Hello to all these wonderful people in the live chat. They will be the ones that probably outdo me with the jokes. Don't worry, I'm not going to do an opening monologue, so you are good to go. I got an alert for the new episode. Okay, so a few people did. That's nice to see. Anyway, feeks, not feet. I mispronounced it, but I didn't say feet. I'm not that much of a pervert. That's right. Come here for the kink shaming, stay for the comic book discussion. All right, tell you what, let's just get started with the news of the week.
We're sitting on top of the story of the century here.
Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Hi guys, this is April O'Neil from Channel 6 News, and I am here in beautiful New York City.
Ew. That's me. That's me mirroring my little thumbnail. Ew. Can you believe this stuff? Yeah. So we'll have some weighty topics tonight, like discussing Valiant Comics using AI, Kickstarter's bizarre new rules that have instantly resulted in banning a lot of comic book projects. But we've also got a ton of announcements for Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, adaptations, comic book store news, all sorts of stuff. Hey, thanks for the super chat, Joe Dent. Hello there, Chris. Love the show. I'm working as I listen in. Well, thank you. Producing a track. Good luck with the house, man. I wish you and Chrissy the best. Well, just real quick, I finished one piece of things, folks, and that's simply I'd already done the demolition and water treatment, or the water mitigation, so that there's no mold actively in my house. And the company was trying to charge me way over what they quoted, and it took a couple weeks to discuss back and forth, but I finally got them down to like what they originally quoted. So that was tough, but I did it, and now I can hire somebody to do the rebuilding. That's the really expensive, time-consuming part, but making progress. All right, what do we got here? Let's do a follow-up from something that happened this past week. Happened to me too. I doubt you guys would be able to see it. Let me just zoom in though, and just in case. There were spine ticks on all of DC's books this week. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. Maybe if I get the light just right. Yeah. Do you see this little crease there? This little white line? That's a spine tick. And it may not, to me, that's not much. But if you just grab another random issue, you can see it's totally clean all along the edge. There's no spine crease. There's a small one on my copy of DC. So let's talk about that. Starting with the fact that DC has announced a solution of sorts for last week's Damaged Comics. That included Absolute Batman number 20, Absolute Martian Manhunter issue 11, the new Barbara Gordon Breakout issue 1, as well as some of their, I don't want to say smaller, but like those are their 3 big releases. And so is Supergirl and Fury of Firestorm 2. They all, and we still don't know for sure whether this happened at, printing or shipping, but a lot of people have said they think that it's the way it gets printed, with like a certain paper, but I'll tell the whole news and I'll explain why I think it's lunar shipping. So all the A covers, we're in the age of variant covers, but all the main covers and the cardstock and retailer exclusive cover variants that sit on top of the A covers all got spine ticks. It was just noticeable that they all had these little weird creases. So DC is going to be giving stores complimentary second printings of all of these books so that there's undamaged copies. There's no way to undo what happened to the first print. So they're doing second printings of all these issues they announced. Hey, Dave. Nice to see you. West Coast Avengers in the house there. I'm sorry I damaged all those Absolute Batman books. I was just trying to create the comic drama everyone craves. Well, mission accomplished. They're also offering a 15% off of variant covers that are ordered for comic book stores. So they're trying to make it up to them. The DC's definitely taken a bit of a financial hit, but as well they should. It's their mistake. The buck stops there. Because of this damage, if you go on eBay and look for the pre-sale graded copies, the ones that get like 9.8 and they just get shipped straight, I think, to CGC to get put in a slab. Those are literally, like, I can find tons of completed sales for $69.99. This book came out this week. And I'm not an expert, but I honestly don't think that these spine ticks move it below a 9 because they're really small. Great question, Noah. How do spine ticks affect the reading of the comic book contents? Zero effect. I think it's overblown how big a deal it is. People are trying to sell the damaged ones. That I didn't know. The damaged ones are worth whatever they're worth. And considering how big a print run Absolute Batman has, I would say cover price or lower, not more. Thank you, Ross. Glad to see that some of my most engaged folks are watching it because I'm proud of that episode. Oh, and by the way, since Dave from West Coast Avengers is in here, little hint, he's going to be interviewing Sanford Green in a couple weeks. So, keep your eye on the Direct Edition podcast and channel. Finally, there were a bunch of other Image comics that had some of these spine ticks. Spawn, Dork, Witchblade, a couple others that came out this week. Not all of them, because my Transformers, for instance, is an Image book, and that was fine. And personally, my copy of Dork, number 4, was fine. But it still leads me to think that could be a shipping thing from Lunar if Image had the same problem in the same week. I could be wrong. I don't know. Unless somebody basically owns up and says, yeah, we did this thing, we'll probably never know. I can't wait to talk about Dork later tonight. It's a very impressive book. Very good book. Anyway, that was the latest with DC and damages. Moving forward, look at how gorgeous this is. I usually like Alex Ross, but every once in a while I see something and I don't know, I just love it. And this is an example of that. This is Alex Ross homaging George Perez, but I love it. So this summer, DC and Marvel are re-releasing their absolutely fantastic JLA Avengers crossover that was done by Kurt Busiek and George Perez. It's facsimile editions, but if you've ever missed it, it really is a fantastic example of what you can do with a company crossover. It was just fun. It had a coherent story. It gave you everything you wanted with the right matchups and the right team ups. Really, really fun book. Looked gorgeous. Perez really gave it his all. Anyway, nice to see that it's coming back this summer as facsimile editions. And they're going to do a thing for issues 3 and 4. 3 will be by Marvel. 4 will be by DC. They go back and forth publishing every other issue. But yeah, he did a connecting cover. So if you get issue 3, you get this. If you do issue 4, you get this. And if you don't know, this is what's really cool. These were not what George Perez drew on the JLA Avengers book in 2003, 2004. No, there was originally going to be a JLA Avengers crossover back in like 84 or 83. I guess it must have been 83, maybe even 82, but it was somewhere in the early 80s. They were talking about it. George Perez got to work and drew something like 20 pages of this, only for the executives at Marvel and DC to disagree on how it should go. It never officially got approved. Perez got started before it was approved. And he'd created this cover, which was published on Comics Interview issue, what was it? Issue 6. So look at that. That was something that George Perez produced that was never actually used as the official cover here. It's in back matter from like the trade paperbacks for the JLA Avengers that did see print. And then if we go back here, you can see what Perez has done with it, you know, adding his quote unquote realistic style. So I thought that looked really, really cool. He used the same layout, but you can tell that he like drew each of the characters from scratch, even though the layout is the same. Like it isn't like he traced it and made it realistic. You know, Iron Man is, you know, his head is tilted back instead of forward. And, you know, obviously like Hercules is tilted more to the side looking at his opponents than Perez's was. So anyway, I think it's a really cool thing. And even though I have JLA Avengers, I might be tempted to get the facsimiles if I can get this cover. I just think it's an example of a really good cover that's really fun. So Spider-Man was not in the Avengers at the time. That was, or at least he wasn't really considered a main Avenger. I guess he was a reserve Avenger. So he's not part of this story. They use pretty much the classic JLA and classic Avengers. What we at least at the time tended to think of as the main cast. Yeah, sorry, not Marvel DC. It's specifically JLA Avengers. I'll move on, but I thought that was kind of cool, so I wanted to share it. This one caught my eye. So a lot of you know that if you look at a random issue of, say, Weekly Shonen Jump, there's always going to be a survey inside for the readers. It lets them figure out which of the features in that anthology are the most popular. And that's really common across a lot of Japanese magazines that carry manga. So reader surveys, super common in Japan. I don't think I can remember ever getting a reader survey for Marvel or DC, let alone any of the other publishers. This week, DC launched a survey for readers about its Absolute line. And if you're curious, I went ahead and created a QR code so that you can pull up the survey if you wanted to participate. I have no dog in this race. The survey asks questions like your demographics, of course, you know, age, you know, your background with comics, what kind of stuff you're into aside from comics, but it also asks some specific, these are just example questions. How long have you been reading DC Comics? What caught your attention about the Absolute line? What makes an Absolute title worth purchasing to you? And what kind of related merchandise you'd be interested in, you know, toys, t-shirts. It gives you like options. There are a lot of times in others so that you can add extra stuff. I just thought that was interesting just because I've never seen that done before. I think it's a good idea, honestly, to have surveys because beyond sales numbers, I would want to gauge engagement. You know, like if if one book is selling, and I'm just making up low fake numbers, but like, let's say there's one comic that sells 1,000 copies, but then the next comic sells 800 copies, but their readers are super engaged, and therefore they're likely to never miss an issue, pick up trade paperbacks, buy related merchandise, go to a movie based on it. That 800, you'd want to know, and you'd be like, oh, let's not cancel the 800 because this audience is super engaged. So these are things I'm surprised sometimes that Marvel and DC don't have regular surveys to their books, like every couple of months. Yeah, DC is doing this right. At the same time, there's nothing in there that's specific to some of the social media criticisms, like the DC So White campaign, right? There's nothing that says like, what hero do you think is missing from the line? There's a few things where you could fill in a blank and add that feedback, but there's nothing specifically asking that. I think that they're just trying to understand, in my opinion, this is just me as a guy with a marketing background, they're trying to get demographic data of like who is reading it, not just how many copies are being sold, but like what age, what income level. Not that they ask income, but they can intuit some of that. And I think that they want to know, why is Absolute working so well? Because it is, so it's smart. It's smart to ask this. I'm surprised that we don't get things like this more often. Yeah, literally the closest I could think of when I was trying to think of surveys was like in '88, there was that phone number to decide whether Jason Todd lived or died, but that's not really a survey. It was just a weird poll. Anyway, I thought I'd share that because I just don't know what to make of it, but I like the idea. And in my opinion, this shouldn't be something they do just sort of like once for Absolute. If I was a big publisher like Marvel, DC, even Image, I would be doing surveys at least once a quarter for their line, if not more frequently. Invincible. I'll pivot to talking about Image stuff. So, in an interview with The Direct to promote the Invincible TV show, which just wrapped up its 4th season, they got to interview Robert Kirkman, one of the co-creators, writer, producer on the show. And one of the things he talked about was he said that future seasons will have more original stories, not just adapting the comics, but stories that fit in the middle, like season 4's Damien Darkblood one, where Damien Darkblood goes to hell. Has Bruce Campbell, by the way. Here's a quote. The writers on the show have tons of ideas. That's not an impression, by the way, of Robert Kirkman. That's my perfect impression of Abraham Lincoln, 16th president of the United States. Anyway, the writers have tons of ideas. So yeah, you can expect more side quests and things that will be working their way into the overall narrative of the show as we go on, just because it's exciting to us and it's a fun thing to do. Co-runner Simon Rachiopa, I'm guessing there, explained how any material, quote, just needs to feel organic to the show so that no episodes are skippable. But I do want to say, they didn't mention any new specific episode ideas or anything, and why would they? But episode 4 got the lowest rating of the season. Now, I don't think 7.1 is necessarily a bad rating. It's I would still consider it a little above average, the way people rate things online. But it didn't seem like it was that popular. At the same time, this overall season was super popular. So I think that people just didn't want that distraction at that time. I don't know. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I wonder if Elemental would be put in the show. I don't think there's necessarily a reason to. I think that she was created to add something to the game, and she's being put into, the comics in the back of capes right now, just for fun. I did mean Immortal, exactly. Connecting it to Invincible, I like that. Did they really? That's interesting, Black Phoenix. I sincerely, I was, of course, reading comics at the time, and I don't really remember the reader surveys at all. But I do believe you. I just don't remember it. Not Malbolgia. It was like their own version of a demonic entity. The continuity across Image superheroes should always be taken lightly. It's kind of like a version of that character exists in each of their comics, but that doesn't make each comic canon to the other comics, if that makes sense. Like each Savage Dragon might have had Spawn or Invincible pop in, but that's the version for Savage Dragon. Anyway. Battle Pope was never part of it. Nice to see you, Andy. Oh, Andy would know about the crossover stuff. Of course, he did Fire Breather, and there was briefly a comic called The Pact, which had some of the sort of teen or younger Image superheroes in the early 2000s. It had Fire Breather, Invincible, a version of Shadowhawk. I'm trying to remember who else was on The Pact. It's not all coming to me right now. Was that? No. His name wasn't Malbolgia in Labyrinth. It was it's not coming to me right now, but it wasn't Malbolgia. Jareth. Oh, it was a joke. Sorry. Excuse me. All right, moving forward. I'll do some more Image stuff. So in June, we talked about this briefly last week, but it was kind of news to me. I got some more details on it, but the joke is male bulge. I get the joke now. I get the joke. Not bad. I'm sorry I didn't get it at first. Hey, thank you so much for the super chat, Steve. Nice to have you here. Anyway, all right. So Youngblood 100. We're adding up all the different Youngblood mini-series and aborted series over the years, and I guess we get up to 100 issues. Sure. I believe that the same way that Ninja Turtles is at 300 and Amazing Spider-Man is at 1,000. It's like, they can claim whatever number they want. Close enough, right? But to celebrate this, he is getting covers from all of the Image founders except Jim Lee. We can kind of understand Jim Lee's insanely busy, but he also added instead Robert Kirkman. So Rob's cover is inked by McFarlane to mirror their collaboration back in the day on New Mutants 87. That's them working together for the first time, I believe, since then. Of course, it's an homage to Gil Kane's Avengers 145. People always think that New Mutants 87 was original, and it's like, yeah, they're not cards, they're turned into crosshairs, but look at like the positioning of the hands and you're like, okay, well, that's the same. The fingers are holding the gun the exact same way. Anyway, there's also covers by Mark Silvestri. That's his first time drawing Youngblood. I think that's my favorite of these covers, by the way. Yeah, but that continuity, Youngblood, are you pumped? I have no idea what the continuity there is. There's Will Spertatio, and while he's done covers for stuff like Walking Dead Deluxe as recently as last year, he hasn't done interiors for Image since 2013's Non-Humans. So not a lot of comic book stuff these days at Image, but there's his cover for Youngblood, and I got to admit, that's also pretty dynamic. That's not bad at all. Eric Larson. I thought that he and Rob didn't get along for some reason, but I guess they get along just fine because Larson produced a nice cover for the book. Jim Valentino, which is his first Image comic work since 2022's Shadowhawk one-shot. There's that one. Fun. Valentino doesn't get enough credit for all the great stuff he did. Talk about a guy that like moved from indie to mainstream. Just did a lot for Image. He gets forgotten sometimes, but he's had a really interesting career. And Robert Kirkman, he's a writer, not an artist, so it's not usually what you get, but not too bad. Not too bad at all. Hey, it's got feet, right? inked by Liefeld. So that's fun. That's fun. Love Sanford Green. Yes, he's great. Chew, here's an image book. Writer John Layman and artist Rob Geary's Image Comics book Chew is in development for a live-action TV adaptation by Blumhouse. Blumhouse, by the way, put out an absolutely incredible movie this past week, Obsession. I'll talk about that later in the show when I'm like sort of drawing and doing a cool down, but Obsession is one of the best in a long time. Where did I go? Oh, yeah. Geary also posted the news to his Facebook page, and he has replies to it where he added more info. Like, okay, it's been kind of a secret, but the paperwork is done, so might as well start telling people. The Blumhouse Atomic Monster folks are fantastic, so we're excited to be working with them. Good for you. He also posted an image of actor Randall Park and said, look, guys, thanks for the congrats on the Chew Blumhouse thing. But look, we really can't say anything about the casting yet. And we certainly wouldn't reveal that kind of information on Facebook of all places. Ha ha. So sounds like Randall Park is at least in discussions to head up this show, which would be awesome. He's fantastic. Loved him since his Channel 101 sketch comedy days, going into bigger shows like, what was it? Fresh Off the Boat was his big sitcom. And if you haven't read the book, it is both funny and an awesome premise for a crime book. It's a creator-owned book, and Chew follows Tony Chew, a U.S. FDA agent who solves crimes by receiving psychic impressions from whatever he consumes as food. That means if he ate a piece of a dead body, he'd get a psychic impression of what happened. It's pretty cool. It's in a way a little similar to some of the ideas from iZombie, but Chew expands on that in a much bigger way. Yeah, it has been picked up before. It was in development for a really long time. It sounds like this one actually has progress behind it. We'll see. But if you want to get on the comic before the mainstream audience starts talking about it, here's your chance. Thought I'd pass that on. First saw Randall Park on Adult Swim's Off the Air block. I don't know Off the Air. I'm sorry. Let's talk about the Kickstarter thing. I'll acknowledge this. Obsession was good. That actress was good. She was in Superman and Lois previously. Yep. She is going to get some great work in the future, I imagine. Absolutely. The things she does as a character and like with her facial contortions, just incredible. So, if you don't know, Kickstarter changed its rules this past week. They're saying that not safe for work comics are not allowed, and they're blaming it all on their new payment processor, Stripe. Stripe, if you don't know, has done something like this before, where they used to, I guess, process payments for what's it called, OnlyFans, and they said we're not going to process payments for anything to do with adult content. So I don't know who OnlyFans uses now, but they switched providers. But Kickstarter is saying, like, no, we're going to follow Stripe's rules. So according to Kickstarter's rules page, any art containing, quote, implied nudity, where the subject is wearing lingerie, fetish wear, or clothing that is see-through or very tight and shows human genitalia, the anus, or the nipple areola of female breasts, will cause a project to not be allowed to fund on the platform. That sounds dangerously close to just regular plain superhero books. Crazy. Don't ask me. They just don't want. They're puritanical. These are some tough rules that have just come in. Additionally, any attempt to blur, censor, or otherwise edit the image, like cropping it to cover any of those offensive things, is a violation of the new rules, because they say you have to accurately depict what's in the book. So if you wanted to do a nude variant cover as a perk for your project, that's absolutely going to be canceled. Not just that perk is denied, your project gets canceled. So it's a really harsh rule. Can the project itself have all of this, but the project page can't? Apparently, no. Apparently, no. If they find out, they do an initial algorithm search, but also people can report it. And if it's supposed to, in the pages, have like a sex scene, doesn't even matter if it's like mature, like, you know, a crime comic like a Criminal might have a sex scene in it. That would, by the new rules, not be allowed. That would not be allowed. This is, I'm so, like, I'm offended that they're coming up with something this strong and that they're trying to skip the buck by saying it's Stripe. Well, you're the ones choosing Stripe. Kickstarter's already started banning projects that were in progress, to be clear. One example among many is this one, which, you know, I only read because I was reading the news, but it seems like a pity to me. So the book's called Pyro Vixen by a guy named Luis Torres. It had already raised over $10,000 from almost 200 backers. Still had 17 days left, but he got a letter explaining that Stripe bans adult content. He can't do it. You know, there are obviously other places you can crowdfund. Indiegogo, technically Zoop, you could use. Wouldn't be my first recommendation, but there are other places. And yeah, I think that, like, you know, this Kickstarter has become a very vibrant place to publish comic books through at a decent scale, you know, bigger at least than just sort of guessing at how many copies you could sell at a convention or on your own personal website. Yeah, I don't disagree, Dave. I agree with you, Actual Dracula. They are going to lose a ton of business. Yeah, creators will absolutely go to other crowdfunding platforms. I don't know the full details of it, but there's one that's called something like Independent Creator something or other. I want to say it's an acronym for maybe ICE. I should have looked it up before I did the news. It's on the tip of my tongue and I can't quite remember it. It's a new program that's more indie. And of course there are, you know, smaller press publishers that maybe you could work with, like Power Pulp or Cosmic Lion. You know, like, there are some smaller publishers that might take your project, but I think it's nice to be able to just cut out a middleman, essentially, and manage the project yourself. And ideally, you know, keep more of the profits for yourself and not have to charge your readers as much. There's a lot of great things that you can do with crowdfunded comics. Yeah, I backed Jim Starlin's original Dreadstar Kickstarter. I backed tons of comics on Kickstarter. Randy Stone was just in here. He's done a bunch of comics, and they're, you know, all ages. So, like, but he's done some horror stuff too. And who knows if, like, the horror stuff, Randy, is going to get caught up in whatever new algorithm Kickstarter has. I don't know. I'm just going to look something up real fast, see if I can remember what the crowdfunding site that I was thinking of was. Independent Creators Comics. There's something called Fund My Comic. I don't really know a whole lot about that one. Maybe it's called ICC? I just can't find it. Darn, I'm really sorry. I was trying to see if I could find it, but if I think of it later, I'll mention it. Just crappy. You know, I never really used Tumblr, so I didn't realize. Is that what happened to them? That's why they lost all their fan base? Tumblr, like, implemented tight rules like that? I know that Tumblr was huge. I just had never really been in it. Yep, Turok starter. You can put out any comic as long as it has Turok in it. Oh, yeah, well, I don't really want to promote something like that. That's too bad. Yeah, I definitely worry about, like, like if I want Jim to be Jim, and if even having like an image of a sexy lady is going to get his project shut down, that's just bullshit. And he's already, like, with just 2 campaigns, Jim has built such a great following with his Defective Comics label. He should be able to do a 3rd one and build that even more. But if you switch platforms, it's starting a little from scratch. Well, anyway, I just had to share it. I do wonder a little if Kickstarter might realize how much business they'll lose and if they'll just ditch Stripe, because they're blaming it all on Stripe as the payment processor. I say, what's that really worth to you? I doubt Stripe will change. They're massive. They're just absolutely massive in terms of the billions, maybe literally even trillions that they turn over between companies. But I don't know. Yeah, Kickstarter makes tons of money on all of these. And that feels like just such an American thing. Like, we've always been way, way, way more okay with extreme violence, but like have a very old-fashioned view of genitalia, even, let alone sex. Feels very old-fashioned. Feels very outdated to me. Well, no reason you necessarily should, since they're so big and they're so behind the scenes. Like, I'm trying to think of like the scale of them, but Stripe is the largest. See, here's the thing. They're privately owned. So they don't have to like do things that shareholders say, like, hey, this would be more money. They just do whatever they want. They've got a valuation themselves. They're worth about $159 billion. And here's the thing. In 2025, they processed $1.9 trillion in payment. $1.9 trillion. They're based in Ireland. They've been around for 16 years. Does it say anything about... They work with companies like Ford, Spotify, Maersk. They're like a massive shipping company. Microsoft, Amazon, Airbnb, Alaska Airlines, Toyota, Le Mans. Just some of the biggest companies in the world they service. So they're not super touchable. They can kind of do what they want. No, I guess I didn't. So here, I'll that's a decent topic though. So it didn't quite make the news this week, but maybe there is a little to talk about there with Read Comics Online. This week, one of the piracy sites for comics, I think the biggest one in America, well, not in America, but with English and American comics. I don't believe it's hosted in America. Otherwise, it would probably be shut down. But Read Comics Online, or is it Read Comic Online? I forget. But anyway, whichever it is, they went down for like 2 or 3 days. Yeah, apparently that's why I didn't really have it in the news either, is it did come back. And all I can say news-wise is we don't know why they shut down or anything. Might have just been a technical issue. Might not have been them getting prosecuted or anything. I don't think it was. But it definitely produced a massive conversation on social media, Reddit, Twitter, Threads, of people doing the tried and true arguments of why it's good and why it's bad. And the biggest argument for why it's good is that they have out of print stuff up there, right? Like, hey, there's some titles there that you can't get on like, Amazon or at your comics store. To which I say, like that's sort of part of what's always made comics fun for me is like having to hunt certain things down. I spent 10 years hunting for the Jaws manga and I wasn't miserable. That was fun for me to find. So that seems to be the biggest argument is, hey, they've got stuff that's not up elsewhere. And I say, that's fine, I guess, especially if someone has sort of abandoned wanting to keep that in print. I think a great website that's got that idea is all the public domain golden age stuff is on comicbookplus.com. I love looking at comicbookplus.com. It's where I find some of the crazy stuff that I'll eventually make just a silly episode about. Like, look at how crazy it is. Oh, it's back with a new domain name. Dave's saying now I can't find it with the Jaws manga. I've got a better and better idea of where it could be, and I'm really trying to find it to review this summer. The argument against it, though, of course, is that, look, the margins in comics are very small for creators, publishers, and comic book stores. And when you pirate the comic, that's part of why comics get published in smaller numbers than they used to, because a lot of people just won't do it. I was around when this happened with music, and we were figuring this out because it was new. Things like Napster and LimeWire. I think it was LimeWire. It's hard to remember. It was like over 20 years ago. It was like 30 years ago. All of a sudden, music was free. Cool. But I'll tell you what the music industry did do right. And sometimes I think that they are still too stingy and old-fashioned and weird. But when they introduced that you could get, a song for 99 cents easily through something like, sorry, I dropped my phone, through something like iTunes, a lot of people jumped on that. Something like Spotify is pretty affordable overall. And I think that a lot of people are willing to pay for it if it's an easy to use interface and the price is reasonable. I think a lot of people are still definitely willing to pay for it, but it has to be easier. And I think the problem with digital comics is that they're always charging the same amount that you'd pay for a physical comic. And I don't know that that's the way to do it. And I know why they do. The concern is if you make digital comics cheap, people are going to abandon the physical copies. To which I say, maybe we need to rethink the entire model of how printed comics come out. Maybe they need to come out in anthologies or something like that, and then only the most popular ones get collected into trade paperbacks. I don't know. It's an idea. There might be problems with it. You'd need to do a lot of research. But I think that if you made digital comics very easy to get at an affordable price, and then really prosecuted some of these pirate sites, I think that you would not hurt the reader base. And the problem really is that the more piracy, the harder it is to find a way to make a living in comics, even part-time. Comics is still a very niche industry. It's tough. I'm not so naive as to think that we can instantly adopt and make work the Japanese style, because we have not been conditioned culturally to buy very cheap, anthologies for all ages and all demographics, and then literally not hold on to them and then throw them out. Like that's not like that. That's a different way of looking at how to read. That's a totally different way, but we could start moving towards it, because I do think it's a workable way to do things. So I'm not a fan of pirating comics, and at the same time, I do admit that there is value to be found with access to comics that you can't find elsewhere. That part I do get, because I absolutely use Comic Book Plus. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes anytime I review something, I make sure that I own it, either physically or I buy it digitally. That is true. But sometimes I'm like, I don't want to scan 30 issues in a row. And so I have gone onto some of these sites to get images. I make sure that I own it first so that I don't feel like I'm stealing. But I do save myself time by using it in that regard. So I don't know. Am I part of the problem that I'm mentioning? I don't know. All I can say is, if I can buy it digitally, I do. Some things you can't buy digitally, but you can physically, and I've got the physical copy, but I'm not going to bother scanning it all. Scanning it is so time consuming. And I've done it. I've done it for certain things. I've done it for like certain manga, or sometimes like just certain indie books, and it's a headache. It takes me forever when I make those episodes, forever. But every once in a while, I've taken the shortcut. So I'm admitting that. Yeah, well, I don't think so, because I definitely go to the store and buy my physical comics. I want to support my friends. I want to support the industry. I want to support my local comic shop. I like all that. I like the community it builds, and I like being able to physically have it so that I can talk to you guys about it, flip around. I like that. Comixology for a little while was brilliant, but I still think that the prices should be different. I think that digital should be cheaper. I think you'd sell a lot more. Anyway, it was interesting to talk about. It wasn't quite a news story, because it's like this site went down, but then it came back up a couple days ago. The only news of it was there was a big discussion for like 3 days on all the social media sites, arguing back and forth with whether you should be allowed to pirate or not. All right, what else do we have for news? Barbaric. Here's a good indie book I hope people are reading. Netflix announced this week that they have greenlit a series adaptation of the Vault Comics title Barbaric. That's by writer Mike Marecki and artist Nathan Gooden. Nathan Gooden's really good. The show describes it as, and I think this is accurate, a ruthless and crass barbarian is cursed to use his violence only for good, which sends him his talking axe and a young witch on a road of self-discovery, redemption, and revenge. Axe is hilarious, and a really cool design too. This cackling evil axe. It's going to be run by Sheldon Turner. He's worked on stuff like X-Men First Class. He's going to write it and co-show run with Robert Rovner. He was a producer on Supergirl. So people that at least have a comic book background. I don't know much about them beyond that. There are, apparently this hasn't been finalized, so this could fall through, but deals are in the works to star Sam Claflin and Patrick Stewart. And I can only assume they're thinking Patrick Stewart for the voice of Axe, because he's getting up there in years, and I just don't see him running around. I also don't think he could really play a barbarian anymore. Sorry. But yeah, could be really cool. If you haven't read it, that's a book I do recommend. It's very fun. Very, very cool. That's all I can guess. It's not the voice I imagined, but I can sort of get the contrast there. Like having a dignified voice as it says all sorts of crass, mean things. That's kind of funny. Interesting. Yeah, I think I see a little bit of what you're talking about. Psycho Goreman was at least a good blend of gore effects and funny jokes. And it gave us Rich Evans as what, like a talking, I don't know, washing machine or something? Yeah, but I'm going to talk about it later, Winston. Did you guys watch the Punisher special? I won't spoil anything. I'm going to talk about one shot that got people talking this week. It's this one. Looks kind of weird, right? Punisher gets thrown off a building and hits this crate on the next level. It looks very digital. It does look digital. Here's the thing. It's actually not really. Let me go into this. Yeah, I liked the episode overall, but there are a few problems with it. It does look like video game physics. Here, let me talk about it. This is why it's going to surprise you. So, One Last Kill debuted this week. Pretty strong reviews, I would say. This morning when I checked it, 75% positive for critics, 83% positive for viewers on Rotten Tomatoes. I'd call that pretty strong. It's not perfect, but it's pretty strong. But there were complaints about two things, the sound and the effects. Many noticed that the dialogue audio was mixed too low. I definitely did. I was like, why am I turning my TV up so much? But I was, and Chrissy noticed it too. Disney has acknowledged this. They said they'll get it fixed. So at some point, one day, if you pull it up on Disney Plus, it's supposedly going to have better sound. They just mixed the audio too low versus like the music and effects. It was a little annoying. A lot of people also pointed out a brief shot where Punisher is pushed off a building and falls onto a silver crate, noting that it looks like unfinished visual effects. Again, there it is, right? But here's the thing. Disney revealed behind the scenes footage, and that's an actual stuntman. And you can tell that they actually did this. The only digital effect was that it was a stuntman and they digitally replaced Bernthal's face. All I can figure is that it's like super brightly lit because it's sunny outside and they slow-moed it. So it's something about the frame rate and the way it's lit. But this was an actual stunt, which I say that poor stuntman to go through this big stunt where he has to hit this crate real hard and everyone's saying it looks terrible. Can you imagine that? Imagine doing that work. You could, oh. So there it is again. It just looks so weird. It looks so... I noticed it when it happened. And I was stunned when I saw the behind the scenes footage of them dropping an actual stuntman on it. And I was like, oh my God, they really legit did it with a person. But it just doesn't look right here. It just, I don't know. So they're not going to fix that, but yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that actually. Yeah, Alien 3. Everybody thought that was CGI, but no, it was a puppet. I feel bad for him. So I think it's something about the way that it's lit and the frame rate. It does not look right, and we're trained in the day of like AI imagery and special effects. We look for something. If it doesn't feel quite right to our eye at first, we're just like, that's an effect. Yeah, hold on. There's a digital camera shake, and that's sort of what I mean about the frame rate and the late lighting. But just to be clear, that is real technically. They legit did drop this stuntman on this, crate, and they digitally replaced this part. Here's what I suspect happened. This digital camera doesn't have any motion blur to the way he moves. And with film, there's usually a little bit of blur. And to us, that looks real. But when you use digital, it can be so precise that you don't get that motion blur. That's what I think we're seeing here. Is just like that it's like real crisp along the edges, which a lot of times can look like what a digital effect is. But if you pause on any individual shot, when you see how, say, the lighting is very consistent in terms of the shadow gets darkest at like the closest to the body and literally has almost like sort of an edge light. I think it's just the crate may have had some work done on the edges for all I know digitally, but I think that it's legit just that this was done with a digital camera instead of film, and I think it just doesn't look good. Well, that's an interesting point. Or the stunt was real. It is. I've seen. You can look it up. They shared it. they used it as an animation reference in skeleton work. Wannington, that is a possibility that I hadn't considered. Maybe they completely recreated it, so they've got all the reference to get things like the shadows and the light correct, but it isn't real, and we can feel that. We can feel that. I'm sure they did have pads under there, so they may have replaced a little bit of what's underneath them. It's still... Yeah, they drop him, maybe not quite a story, but they drop him like about half a story on his back onto this crate. It's a pretty big stunt in its own way. I'll talk about it a little bit when I'm inking tonight. I would say I'd give it something like 1.5 out of 3 thumbs. It's got a lot of like build up in it. It's about an hour long, just to be clear. It's got about 30 minutes, not quite, maybe more like 20, is Frank going through PTSD stuff, just trying to build it up. And then it does become a hell of an action sequence. That's absolutely fantastic, and I wish is what every episode of Punisher could have. I suspect it was done in some ways to just make it clear that, hey, he's back to being the Punisher. That's why he's going to be in Spider-Man. If anyone cares, boom, there they did it. But second, I think it's a test to gauge interest, and they want to see if it's worth investing in doing a season of a Disney Plus Punisher show at like a hard R. Boy, I don't know. I've seen it on Threads and Twitter, but yeah. So I'd say like the second half is pretty fantastic. The acting is good. I would just say that like there's too much buildup that's repetitive to what we've seen with the Punisher in the MCU before. So if you follow Punisher, in season 2 of Daredevil, he basically is Punisher, right? And then he sort of gives up at the end. And so then the Punisher show comes along and he's drawn back into it. And then he gives up at the end. And then season 2 comes along and he's drawn back into it. And then you see him in Daredevil Born Again. And again, he's not the Punisher, but he's drawn back into being it. And then he gets captured and escapes. And so this special is about him sort of trying to move on from being the Punisher, and he gets drawn back into it. I will say this is the best getting drawn back into it because they take a bunch from the comic book Welcome Back, Frank by, Ennis and Dillon. But yeah, it's hard to love because it's very repetitive if you've seen all of this. That's sort of fair, actually. Yeah. All right. One last time. Marvel has an upcoming fighting game that's anime infused, we'll say. It's Marvel Tokon, Fighting Souls. That comes out in August. And this week we learned that it has a 10-hour story mode. 10 hours. However, let me explain what that 10 hours means. Game producer Takeshi Yamanaka spoke with 4Gamer to reveal the story, talk about the story mode. Also explained that most of that is a motion comic with fights interspersed. So it isn't like a 10-hour long game that you play through or anything. It's lots of motion comic scenes, and then that builds up to a fight that you do. Takeshi explained that they did hire manga artists to actually draw the story, and then they added motion elements. And that was a very time-consuming way to make this, but they felt that it was necessary to offer a story mode for casual gamers that weren't necessarily going to be constantly playing against other people to have a reason to like sort of play through it themselves. So I appreciate the initiative. As to how engaging it is, time will tell. Thank you so much, Will. I really appreciate the support. That's really amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I find motion comics in and of themselves annoying, but if it's done with good art in a way that moves a game forward, I might be open to it. That's Arc System Works style. They usually present their stories in a visual novel style. Anyway, when they say 10 hours, that means, I think, 10 hours worth of content, depending on which team of fighters you use and go all the way through a story. I think it may literally be something like 5 different stories you could get told. Anyway. Doesn't excite me, but the game looks pretty cool. Remember last week when I discussed the Killing Joke book for $17,000 and change? I think we found a more expensive new comic book. Jeep and Captain America, both created in 1941. And with the 250th anniversary of America happening this July, they have announced a collaboration on a special Jeep. This is an official Captain America Jeep. So this is more than the $17,000. The 2026 Jeep Wrangler America 250 edition retails for $49,030. So that is more than you would spend on The Killing Joke to get this comic. But you do get a car with it. And I guess if I was going to get a Jeep, I'd get a Wrangler. If you buy this vehicle, it comes with this, a limited edition comic book cover. It's a dedicated cover with Jeep, co-branded with Jeep, featuring Captain America. It's exclusive with the Jeep Wrangler America 250 purchase. So if you're a completist for the comics, I guess you've got to buy yourself a Jeep. That's tough. Jeeps aren't great. It was the first car I ever financed for myself, a Jeep Cherokee. It was okay. It was new when I got it, so at least there was a warranty. I did have electronic problems. But I would say that some of their things are built better than others, and I would say that the Wrangler, certainly that the Sahara trim, is one of their better vehicles. If you're going to get a Wrangler anyway, this, just to be clear, only costs about $2,000 more than the regular version. Okay, that's it. So it's not a tremendous amount more than this version of the Jeep. It's a certain, I forget which trim level it is, but whatever it is, it's got Captain America branding around it, to be clear. It's got like some red, white, and blue stripes on the hood, some stitching on the leather seats that, like, say, Captain America. It's got the kind of iconic spare tire cover with Captain America's shield. It's not bad branding at all. Jeep, if you don't know, already puts Easter eggs all over their car. The more expensive the car is, the more little Easter eggs. You'll find things that refer to, like, their old Willie Jeep that they airdropped in World War II. Things like that. You can find, if you open like the gas tank, you might find a little spider, or if you look at the back window, sometimes there's a sea monster or Bigfoot hidden in there. Things like that. It's weird. Jeep just does Easter eggs. Electronic problems is definitely a Chrysler staple. Absolutely. John, I think you just had the joke of the night. Yep, it won't fit in your pole box. Good job. Thank you, John. Thank you. Yeah, the Tesla's a red skull. Some of you know that I've got a day job and I work selling used cars. I've sold the Walking Dead Hyundai Tucson, and I've also seen, I think it was a Hyundai Kona Iron Man edition. And I will say the Iron Man edition is pretty awesome looking. I don't know as much about this Jeep one. I personally cannot wait for the game. Oh, the Marvel Tokon. It may not be Marvel versus Capcom, but I'm happy to have another Marvel fighting game. It looks nice. It does look nice. The comic, by the way, even though this is an original cover, it is a reprint of last year's issue 1. of 1776 by J. Michael Straczynski, artists Ron Lim and Sean Damian Hill. So that was kind of funny. They were just looking for, it's a little warm in here. I'm taking off my sweatshirt. The customers were just looking for an SUV, and they were interested in the Hyundai Tucson. It was wrapped with, Walking Dead graphics, including like zombies and stuff. And they were interested in it, and they were like, oh, cool, Walking Dead, we watched that. And so I'm trying to connect with them, and I go, I actually work on the comic a little bit. I edit and proofread for it. And the reaction when I told them that was, they did not care about the comic book background or connection at all. So I just dropped it, but I did end up selling it to them. They were happy. Jeep does have an interesting U.S. history. I like that they honor their own heritage with their Easter eggs, but I wouldn't want a Jeep personally, even if it was like Captain America themed, and I love Captain America. One more piece of Marvel news, kind of big behind the scenes thing. Dan Buckley is leaving Marvel. That was announced today. He served as Marvel Entertainment's president from 2003 through 2025, pretty long run. And then he moved last year into head of comics and franchise. So basically was the top guy at Marvel with the restructuring reporting to Kevin Feige. Marvel released a statement about it. After a nearly 30-year career with Marvel, Dan Buckley, longtime head of comics and franchise, has announced his plans to depart. Buckley will remain at Marvel through mid-2027 to support the leadership transition. So it's not like he got fired or anything. He's just moving on. So Marvel head of studios Kevin Feige said, from events like Civil War, Secret Wars, X-Men Age of Krakoa, and the soon-to-be-released Marvel Midnight imprint, to the expansion into video games, television, animation, and more, that is all true, Marvel's influence on popular culture expanded under Dan's leadership, bringing our characters and stories to new fans around the world. Dan has Dan has left a lasting mark on Marvel's legacy and on the comics industry, and I'm deeply grateful to him and pleased we will have his full support through this transition. So what happens next? Brad Winderbaum. You may have heard the name before listening to the news. He's been the head of TV. He has headed up Marvel Television. Well, now he's taking over this role. So editor-in-chief C.B. Cebulski will report to Brad Winderbaum at this point. So it's above like all, it's more than just the comics. C.B. Cebulski is the editor-in-chief of the comics, but this guy is in charge of like the comics as well as, the franchising and stuff like that, the selling, licensing stuff, all the other stuff that they do. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if we as readers notice any change. I will say he came in at a time when Marvel was in a very rough spot. 96 was Marvel at its absolute lowest. They did give Jimmy Palmiotti and Joe Quesada, 4 characters to just do with what they will. And obviously the Marvel Knights really turned things around for Marvel. Then they hired Quesada on as editor-in-chief, and things did grow under him. I know we're not all happy with, like, for instance, what happened with Spider-Man, but he definitely turned Marvel around, and that was under eventually Dan Buckley. And he did grow Marvel to, the point where they got sold to Disney, and when they started producing their own films before even that. So, Buckley did do a lot of good for getting Marvel into a good financial position. I think that once they were owned by Disney lost a lot of interest in making sure that the comics themselves were, headed in the right direction. I didn't know that. Winderbaum started as an indie filmmaker. His series SIKTC 88 was a choose your own adventure web series. That's kind of cool. Yeah, Buckley is leaving. He's announced it today, but he is staying through next year to transition things. Yeah, early 2000s, Marvel really turned around in a big way. But these days, obviously not quite in the same position. Oh, I guess I did have one more Marvel thing. The New York upfronts happened this week. If you don't know what those are, this time every year, I don't know why they're called the New York upfronts other than you go up in front of people. But the various TV networks and streaming services announce their shows like on a stage to advertisers and companies that broker advertising deals so that they know what's coming up and where they want to spend their ad dollars. So they get to know about what's coming before we get to see all of this, but we get to hear about it. They announced that VisionQuest will premiere October 14th. I'm actually looking forward to that. I think that Agatha All Along and WandaVision were both two of the best things that they did in Marvel TV. They got to see a teaser trailer, and apparently it revealed, among other things, that Ultron exists in Vision's head, taunting him. And obviously he'll have goals to get out and become his own entity again. That does make a certain amount of sense. You know, like Ultron made Vision out of himself. Like Ultron was like one of many AI personalities that formed who Vision was. So it does make a certain bit of logical sense that Ultron could be hidden within Vision. Yeah, I kind of like that idea. I liked James Spader as Ultron. I think that was the best part of that Avengers sequel. The show is going to bring back Vision. It's going to bring back Raza, the terrorist from Iron Man 1 that had the 10 rings ring. It's got James Darcy, who was Jarvis back in Agent Carter. He worked for Howard Stark. James Darcy is coming back. James Spader is Ultron, of course. It's going to introduce, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Rurard Malika as Tommy Maximoff, Tania Miller as Jocasta, and Todd Stashwick as Paladin. So they're introducing 3 comic book characters at least within this. Yeah, I'd want Ultron to come back. Ultron would be a good villain to bring back. I think that Marvel will bounce back, to be honest. I do. Hopefully it's good. I like the last 2. So this will sort of form a loose trilogy about Wanda and Vision and their kids. This is a weird story. It's about a comic book store, okay? And a lawsuit that's been going on for 6 years that got wrapped up. A judge ruled this month that the owner of a Connecticut comic book store, this one, is not required to pay damages to a West Haven, Connecticut man whose rare comics were stolen by a contractor working at his home and then sold to the comic book store for a fraction of their true value. The victim sued the contractor, Frank Secchiarelli, I'm guessing, of Stratford, who was sentenced to 3 years in prison after pleading to first-degree larceny in the case, according to court records, as well as Eric Yacco, owner of alternate universe comic book stores in Milford and New Haven, who denied any wrongdoing. So the victim claimed that he had 246 comics stolen and that they were worth $250,000. I think he was vastly overestimating what his collection was worth, as some collectors do, because a total of 192 were auctioned by a company in Rhode Island for $67,105. To me, when it goes to auction, that's the real value. You're not getting less than the value. You're getting the real value of what people are willing to pay for it. So, yeah. 192 is obviously like about 2/3 of, what was stolen, and a lot less than $250,000 anyway. The warrant said police were able to seize 27 the auction house hadn't sold, as well as 19 that Yakko turned over. The victim alleged Yakko should have done a criminal history search before buying comics. The judge ruled that that was not a reasonable expectation to do and ended the 6-year lawsuit. So I'm glad that, it's too bad that this guy had his comics stolen. And the guy who stole them went to jail and I believe owes a lot of restitution. Good. I'm with you so far. I do think it's a stretch to, go after the comic book store for buying it. This contractor, apparently, he came in and he said, my uncle died. He left me some comics. And so they worked out a deal. I don't think that that's a crazy story to believe. And it's not like a pawn shop buying a gun or, it's not like buying a high-end luxury car or something where you're like, I got to do a background check. He bought some comics. I don't know. Wait, the store owner had to sell his store? What, just like to fund all of this? Ooh, yikes. I didn't hear about that. Anyway, I kind of side with the comic book retailer on this one. I don't think he really should be expected to run background checks on every guy he buys comics from. If the story sounds like it makes sense and they don't give you a reason to think that they're lying, it's not a reasonable expectation that you could do that every time and be buying, lots of a couple hundred comics. It's unrealistic. He still owns the stores. Okay, good. Junji Ito news, folks. Junji Ito's one-shot horror manga, The Long Hair in the Attic, is getting a live-action film. It's co-production with Toei, the Thai studio M Studio, and a South Korean production company called Showbox. They're all teaming up to make this film. There's a director attached from Thailand. Pre-production has started. Their plan is to film it in 2027. It was originally published in Monthly Halloween back in 1988. Junji Ito's been around for more than a minute. I'm trying to not spoil the story, but I will say that it does follow this girl, Chiemi, whose hair keeps growing like a living thing even when she cuts it off. That's not necessarily the entire gist of the story, though. I'm trying not to spoil things. But it's cool and it's creepy. And yeah, I think I could understand how it would make sense to adapt into a film. It has been translated into English in 3 different anthology collections. I want to say the most recent one was, I think it was called The Junji Ito Story. And it was because he's got a lot of anthologies, but I'm pretty sure it's called something like that. Hanging in there. Yeah, for the last story. Yeah. Almost done with the news. Got a few more items. Here's one that I think might be tied to the fact that we had that story with Logan Paul investing massive amounts on graded copies of old Weekly Shonen Jump. A massive speculative wave is taking over the anime and manga collecting community. Specifically, people are looking for first edition unopened Shonen Jump manga volumes. If you don't know, a lot of times when you go into a convenience store or a bookstore in Japan, Weekly Shonen Jump and the other similar anthologies are shrink wrapped, a special kind of shrink wrap. It's like that hard, crinkly stuff that you can just easily tear. But yeah, they do come wrapped. So if you're getting one that's unwrapped with a major character like first appearance, all of a sudden people are interested in that, which is depressing. I hope you can sort of see this, but let me break it down. I got this from, what website? What is it called? Otaku Cart. I don't know. But they put together this list of 3 examples. We've got Kagurabachi. And by the way, I actually have that first appearance, Weekly Shonen Jump. I just happened to pick that one up when I was over there one time. Not wrapped though, so mine's probably not really worth much. We've got Chainsaw Man and Demon Slayer or Kimetsu no Yaiba. They've got the original retail price for each of them, which is very little. Like Kagurabachi was only a few years ago, and it was the equivalent of $3.33. Going all the way back to Demon Slayer is like the oldest of these examples. That was only $2.78. So Weekly Shonen Jump, very inexpensive. The recent resale price, more relevant to us, is what it translates to in US dollars. Kagurabachi from just a couple years ago, $547 it's going for already. Chainsaw Man, $682. And Demon Slayer, $2,776. If you can get a still wrapped Weekly Shonen Jump, that's what these are going for. That Demon Slayer one, that's a price increase of like 99,900%. So, yeah, like something that originally cost less than $3 is now selling for nearly $3,000. Shitty. When I say selling, mostly this is being traded on Mercari, which we have here, but there's also a Japanese Mercari. You can also, I looked it up, you can definitely find these trading for more on Yahoo Auctions Japan. Those are the two popular ones for selling used things as compared to like eBay or something like that. There's a couple other sites, but I don't want to share all that now. I like having a couple like sites that people don't use. No, I have no interest in that. Like I don't speculate. It's just not what I'm interested in. I'm just interested in reading the stories. And, all of these are stories that you can easily get in Tankobon for cover price. So, for like $10, you can get a ton of chapters of each of these and catch up from the beginning. It's just people that want to like own a little piece of history and trade. I sort of get it, but just to be clear, like in Japan, there are always going to be like a few things that people are interested in for older manga, right? There are. Generally, there's not as much a culture of getting lots of, certainly not graded, but like as many old original printings, because if you want to read it, it's always very easy to get the latest Tankobon or get it like real cheap used and it's still in great condition at a place like Book Off. So to read it is very affordable, right? And second, like people could be getting these Weekly Shonen Jump books, but it takes up a lot of space. And if you're living in the city, space is at a premium. So there's just not a lot of interest in it. Exactly. To me, this feels like a bubble. I know that these are Japanese sites, but I strongly suspect that there are people in America buying them from Japanese people, and it's inflating the price. That's what I strongly suspect. Hey, it's my buddy Ben. Ben's Brick Designs has a really fun YouTube channel. Ben makes Lego. I've known him for like... Ben, we've known each other probably close to 30 years now. He's an artist, so we were on the same message boards back then, drawing and chatting and stuff like that. But he's got a great Lego channel. He's done some great pieces, like for the city of Austin. He built a massive scale model of their Capitol building that's there at the Capitol to view, or at least it was. I hope it still is. And he does on his channel, he'll build a lot of original like micro figure types stuff for, Star Wars or other sci-fi stuff. He's great. He's incredible. So it's fun to see you, man. Fun to see you. I don't know the Dan Quintana mess. Did he do something where speculation went through the roof? Probably. Let me continue. this is related. Dave was just in Japan last week. He says, I bought a few One Piece shonens on my trip just based on cover and date, and one turned out to be like a $400 book. Yeah, I think that the ones that people are mostly going for that I saw like had completed sales, they were still shrink wrapped. That would be the biggest difference, like versus unshrink wrapped. Some of them still valuable, but there's a very small audience for it as well. It can be worth a lot because a lot of people don't keep those. So the amount out there is pretty small, but there's also a smaller base of customers. What else? Okay, let's talk about the Valiant thing. Oh my God, this drove me bonkers. All right. So this week, Valiant Comics posted a number of clearly AI-generated images to promote some of their upcoming projects. And I'm like, okay, this is probably maybe like Archer and Armstrong. This is almost definitely Exo Manowar. I forget the name of this, but there's like some shock trooper sci-fi book they have. This one, I'm like, is this supposed to be Ninjak because it's got a sword? Or is this supposed to be Bloodshot because he's a warrior? Either way, sorry, that just looks like Blade to me. Anyway, let's just say, like, one of their ads says, hint, it's not a comic book. So whatever this is promoting, apparently it isn't for a comic book. It's for some sort of related project. Oh, yeah. This is just gross. Look, Valiant has had some ups and downs. They've had two good eras. The original era, when Jim Shooter was running it, that's a good era. There's some really creative ideas, some fantastic talent there. And then when Dinesh ran things from like 2012 to 2018, again, a second great wave for Valiant. But they've had some lows too, and they've had like 5 owners. But they do have some great characters, and they've had 2 good runs. I don't think it's a gaming source book, but I'll explain what I think it is. According to Bleeding Cool, it's an initiative by DMG. Now, DMG is a big company that bought Valiant. They, in turn, sort of have Alien Books actually make the comics, and not many of the comics, but Alien Books makes the comics. DMG technically owns the Valiant properties, and I guess Bleeding Cool has information that DMG is doing something with these characters. The reaction from fans is pretty much universal condemnation. I didn't see anyone saying cool. I saw lots of people saying, can't believe you're doing this. Lots of pros that are disappointed. Pros saying like, I would not want to work for you anymore. I can't believe you're doing this. It's just gross. It's a spit in the face to artists who, are getting stolen from. It's gross. I personally was wondering if this had to do anything with the job posting from 2 years ago where they were looking for an AI video producer to create shorts. At the same time, I'm like, I don't think that even if they hired that job, that person's still there 2 years later because they're not doing well. Valiant does have a Mutants and Masterminds RPG coming out soon. The Kickstarter finished over a year ago. Interesting. So maybe what Ben was saying could be correct. That does make a certain amount of sense now with both of you guys talking about that. Yeah, I wonder if it has to do with a role-playing game. On a related note, as long as we're talking about AI, because I really didn't have more than a bullet point, but it's related to AI comics. One of the Eisner nominees this year also has AI imagery in it. So that means that there's a book with AI imagery that was nominated for an Eisner, which I consider very disappointing. I think it's an oversight by the Eisners. I really don't think that they're fully aware that there's a page within an anthology that was made by AI. I think that they missed that, but who knows? They're still responsible for being, doing their due diligence. Stardust. I've talked about this because I actually backed that book. Had some creators on it that I was interested in. They did not announce this during the Kickstarter, but Stardust has a page made with AI imagery by a writer who claims it was made by his AI persona. I don't really understand what any of that means. It's terrible. It looks bad. I don't think it's interesting or funny. It's supposed to be talking about AI. But yeah, I was really disappointed. And I'll be honest, flipped through when I got the book, saw that page, lost all interest in it. Haven't read it. It really killed my interest in it. I did not hear that, but I am about to talk about the nominations, and I'll have up-to-date information on that in just a sec. So that's interesting. Let's see. Yep. Nice to see you here, Raymar Brunson in the chat. EJ Sue here. EJ, loved your issue of Blood and Thunder that came out this week. Sincerely loved it. Eisner Awards needs to change the acceptance rules. I bet they will. So, yeah, pretty gross. I think that Valiant, and the thing is, they really doubled down, because like at first they posted like one of these or something, and then they just kept posting all these other images, even though they were getting all these complaints. So they obviously have to be aware of the complaints and just said, screw it, we don't care, here's a lot more. They're trying to shove it down your throat. Gross. But I did just mention AI was used in an Eisner nominee, and I think that that's the next piece of news that I want to talk about is the Eisner Awards. So I think the easiest way to do that is to pull up the actual Eisner page. Bear with me here. I've got a tab, and there we go. Can everyone see that? Yeah, Eisner Awards. This is the official Comic-Con page with the Eisner nominees. So they've got like a bunch of preamble here talking about like who got the most nominations. DC got 16, plus another 10 that are shared. So that's the most. Fantagraphics had 14 though, so congrats to Fantagraphics. Dennis Camp, as a creator, got the most nominations, 5. Cool. Let's get to the actual nominations because there's a lot to go through. Best short story. We've got 2 different Shintaro Kago stories from the Brain Damage anthology. I enjoyed that. These were 2 good manga horror stories translated by my friend Zach Davison. So maybe I'm a little biased there, rooting for him. We've got Football Is Not War. We've got Red Snapper in the Ray. And we've got Trapped. Now, last week I talked about Trapped. Trapped won the Pulitzer the other week. It's a real-life story about somebody that got scammed by, like these India call center scammers. So Trapped was an investigative piece, and they told part of the story with a comic book. I got to admit, I probably have to go for Trapped. I think it just has the most value. These are all good books, or stories, comics. I'd give it to Trapped. But for fun, I definitely think The Curse Room is especially fun. Best one-shot or single issue. And if you guys have opinions, shout them out in the comments. I'm curious. Best one-shot or single issue. We've got the Absolute Batman Annual by Daniel Warren Johnson and James Herron. Pretty impressive. Issue 1 of Absolute Martian Manhunter. Great final 2 pages. Assorted Crisis Events Issue 4. Coin Op number 10, Wet Cement. Ice Cream Man 43. That was a cool one where each page was done by a different creative team. I thought Zoe Thorogood's story was like exceptionally personal and heartbreaking. But I'm surprised in a way they didn't give it to them for the Deck of Cards comic. That was really innovative. And Something Is Killing the Children. A monster walks into a bar. I think I missed that issue, to be honest. And I read this comic, but I think I missed that. Anyway, personally, I would go with the Absolute Batman anthology, and mostly for the Daniel Warren Johnson story. I thought it was fantastic. He's got my vote. And it's not easy. I think that these are all great books. Good nominations so far. Really good nominations. I'd have a hard time with it. All of these could have been issues of Assorted Crisis Events. People love Assorted Crisis Events, and I don't blame them. Best continuing series. We've got Absolute Batman and Absolute Wonder Woman, Department of Truth, FML, The Power Fantasy, and Storm. I was a little surprised to see Storm. Is Storm that good? I mean, it would be awesome if it is. You'd love to see, like such a cool character get such a great solo series. I hadn't really heard that much buzz about it. I've definitely heard a lot of buzz about the Power Fantasy and haven't read it. But I think this year, like if you asked me last year, I'd have probably said Absolute Wonder Woman. This year, I'm going to say Absolute Batman. Loved Absolute Batman this year. It was so good. So good. Yeah, it's like picking a favorite child. It's tough. Monster Hunter was serialized in Hello Darkness. That's how I missed it. Power Fantasy is really good. I heard Storm is good. I really want to read it. She's a fantastic character. Department of Truth is cool. I need to catch up someday. Got it. Super, super interesting. Department of Truth, Storm was amazing. I'm glad to see that there are different opinions, sincerely. Best limited series, still really interesting things here. We've got Absolute Martian Manhunter, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Rite of Spring, Bronze Faces, Crownsville, Everything Dead and Dying, Out of Alcatraz. I talked up Out of Alcatraz as a book I really enjoyed. I don't know if Winston Gambro's still in here. He actually got to do the design for the book, including the title page and stuff. So I think that's a super cool credential. I would say that makes you an Eisner nominee, Winston, just to be clear. That's how I would review it. Anyone that worked on these, even though they're listing, the writer and artist, I'd say colorist, letter. If you work on a book that's nominated, I think that's I think that makes you an Eisner nominee. But I would personally go with Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Rite of Spring. I thought it was incredible. I think I might have even liked it more than the first series. And it was just great. I think it was great. But all of these are really strong options. I would not be offended if one of these won over another. I'd go, yeah, that makes sense. Best new series. Something that started this past year. Assorted Crisis Events. No surprise there. Batman Volume 4. Black Cat. Again, I'm a little surprised to see, just because I feel like I'm just not hearing that much buzz and news about Marvel. Exquisite Corpses. Ghost Pepper. And Temporal by Stephanie Williams and Asia Fulmore at Mad Cave. Nice to see Mad Cave pick one up. Exquisite Corpses is too hit and miss for me. I would say for best new series, I'd go with Assorted Crisis Events, actually. And I really have been enjoying Batman Volume 4. I've been enjoying, for the most part, Exquisite Corpses. I think Ludo Lullaby is a really cool artist. But for me, I'd vote for Assorted Crisis Events. I do feel like there have to be some other new books that could have gone in there. I don't know. These are good. These are good, but not great. Not great. I'm surprised Exquisite Corpses made it in a way. And I like these creators. I like the book okay. I just don't know if it would be best. Maybe I'm being too harsh. Some of these I'm not as clued into. It's just not. I haven't read them because it's not aimed at me. Best publication for early readers. Okay. The only one I'd recognize might be the All the Hulk Feels. I don't know. Best publication for kids. This one I do have an opinion on, but only because I read one of them. I'd vote for The Cartoonist Club by Raina Telgemeier and Scott McCloud. Awesome book, awesome creators. Would love to see them pick up another award. Very cool. These I just don't know because I don't have a kid and I generally am not picking up kids' books. Here and there if it gets a lot of acclaim. Best publication for teens. I did happen to read Clementine Book 3 and I really liked it. I consider that a Walking Dead book. Absolutely. So I like that. I do like Mariko Tamaki. So maybe This Place Kills Me is really good. I didn't read any of these others, so I can't make an informed opinion here. Best humor publication? Have I read any of these? yeah, I love humor, but I haven't read any of these. I would be interested in reading Spent, a comic novel, because I have enjoyed Alison Bechdel's work quite a bit. Yeah, your kids are full grown now, man. They're out of the house and all. That's nice to hear. I thought it was pretty cool. Ghost Pepper, I like the premise. I love the art. I just wasn't super engaged with the story, but it's not bad. Spent is great. Okay. Physics for Cats is good. You guys are reading good stuff aside from just mainstream. I'll laugh when I see your corpse. Doesn't Physics for Cats interest you as a cat man? I'm a cat dad. So here we go. Best anthology. They've still got Stardust listed. Maybe they're taking it off, but that's the one I'm talking about that has one AI page in it. And I feel bad for all the rest of the creators in there to be associated with that. We've also got Noir is the New Black Season 2, DC Pride, Come Out and Play, the Queer Sports Project, and 2000 AD 2026 annual featuring Judge Dredd. I might go with, honestly, 2000 AD, but they're all good. They're all good. Come Out and Play is good. See, sometimes this stuff, like, I'm like, I probably enjoy it, but because it isn't aimed directly at me, I miss it sometimes. Okay, another person saying Come Out and Play is good. So that's now something I'll remember. Two people, that counts as a recommendation, folks. That counts as a recommend. All right. Yeah, the cool thing about Ludo Lullaby is at first it does sort of look like retro in the sense of what Joe Madureira brought to comics. But Ludo's very confident in their work and obviously can keep up with a monthly schedule. It does impress art-wise. It does impress. Okay, thanks for the extra info. Appreciate it. We've got a best reality-based work. I haven't read most of these, but I did read Muybridge by Guy Delisle, one of my favorite creators when he tells nonfiction stuff. I love his nonfiction books, and Muybridge is no exception. This is about the guy who kind of invented film. He definitely invented sequential cameras, originally by like this super wealthy guy that owned horses that wanted to prove his theory that when a horse ran, there was at least one brief instant where all four legs were off the ground. Keep in mind, before there were photographs, it was a guess. You'd look at it carefully, but it happened so fast. People weren't sure. Some people could swear that there was always 1 foot on the ground when a horse gallops at full speed. But Muybridge actually proved, yeah, there actually is a moment where all four legs are up off the ground. And what an interesting life. His wife was like way younger than him. He was like an old man, and she began having this affair with some guy. Muybridge literally tracked the guy down and shot him in cold blood and got off because the jury was like, yeah, we'd have done that too. How dare a wife cheat on a guy? Insane life story. But it's a good book, folks. Really interesting. Really, really interesting. Muybridge is the only one I've read. Loved it. Dude's kind of an eccentric weirdo jerk. He is, but he did. Yeah. Great. Yeah. I love Guy Delisle. Just incredible. I can't help it. I love comic book history. I think a lot of it's really interesting. So Muybridge, hit all the right notes for me. Best graphic memoir. This is tricky. This one's tough. I love true comics. I love biographical comics. I think I'd have to give it to Raised by Ghosts by Brianna Lowenson. Yeah, I'd really recommend that one. George Takei, I think it's awesome that he's written another comic book. I do. Really cool that he can pivot kind of later in life to doing something other than, his acting career. But interesting. Andrew says Precious Rubbish, no contest. But I'd overall recommend Raised by Ghosts for what it's worth. for what it's worth. My opinion on my show, no one wants to hear that. Best graphic album new, Canon, Drome, Fable of Erkling Woods, A Garden of Spheres, More Weight, A Salem Story, Shadows of the Sea. Folks, if I chose Drome for best comic of the year, it would be very weird if I didn't choose it here. So yes, Drome by Jesse Lonergan, absolutely my choice for best of the year. Really, really incredible book. I really want to see Jesse win that one. I'm invested in that. Glad that a few other people agree with me that was a great book. We've also got Best Graphic Album Reprint, and this one's actually, again, a pretty competitive category. We've got a Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees Storybook Edition, Ginseng Roots by Craig Thompson. I think Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, the deluxe edition, is a great book. But I would personally go with Ginseng Roots. I think that the collected album is the best way to read that story. Really cool that he did it as individual issues and stuff like that. Forms a great ongoing narrative. Great book. Interesting. Garden of Spheres, series competition. Okay. But I'd give it to Ginseng Roots if it was up to me. Best adaptation from another medium. Alana the First Adventure, The Complete Angler, Dead Man Walking, Ghost Boys, Lord of the Flies, A Wizard of Earthsea. You know what? Blind spot. Haven't read any of these. Looks like they're mostly adapted from novels, I'm guessing. Yeah. I don't know. I'd be curious, now that I see this, though, to read Lord of the Flies. If the art was in a style that I liked, I'd be curious to see that. Best U edition. I almost got that sentence out. All right. Best U.S. edition of international material. Buff Soul, Cornelius, In the End We All Died, Nocturnos, Raging Clouds, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. Interesting. Bunch of Fantagraphics stuff in here. Maybe Cornelius, The Merry Life of a Wretched Dog. U.S. edition of International Material Asia, we've got Hirayasumi, Land, Purgatory Funeral Cakes, Tokyo, Alien Bros, and Yan. You know what? I feel weird. I thought that I was a little more plugged into modern manga. I don't know these books. Okay. On Road on that list is crazy. The Road is peak. The R&B group got their own Eisners. The Road was good. I forgot that came out last year. Highly recommended. Yan. Oh, he's from Taiwan. Okay. I like hearing that. Yeah, I know Earthsea has a huge following, so I get that. Oh, okay. I should read Lord of the Flies. Appreciate the recommendation. Best Archival Collection, Project Strips, Arthur Ferrier's Pinup Parade, Barnaby, the George Harriman Library, Crazy and Ignatz, Ree Irvin's The Smythes, Terminal Exposure. Look, it's got to be this. I think that George Harriman is a massively underrated figure within comics history. I think Crazy and Ignatz is known, but not as known as it should be. Pretty interesting. Also, one of the very, very first Black creators in comics, and that's got to count for a lot in the 20s and 30s. I feel like, just history-wise, that's just so important. So I would vote for Harriman there. Best Archival Collection for comic books, we've got Akira, the Atlas Comics Library, Girl Comics, Comics of the Movement, Hothead Paisan, Scream the Specials, and Weird Science. Look at some of these publishers. Taschen, Fantagraphics, Kodansha. Boy, who do you give it to there? I mean, I think Akira, But I'm really excited to see that stuff like the Atlas Comics Library and Weird Science is coming out in such a high-end format too. That's really cool. I don't know British comics enough to know Scream the Specials. I wish I did. Yeah, that's tough to beat. They've done a few Atlas libraries now. It's really cool. Weird Science could sort of win. It could. I don't know. Tricky category. I think I'd probably vote Akira, but there's some good options there. Best academic scholarly work. I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. These are always interesting. Sorry, I guess it's always twice. All right. These are always interesting. These are generally like big papers written by university students and published by university presses. But they're almost always really interesting reads when they get nominated here. We've got comic art in Korea. I'd be interested in that. Comics of the Anthropocene, graphic narrative at the end of nature. Interesting idea. Graphic narratives of resistance, Latinx comic studies, and manga's first century, how creators and fans made Japanese comics. I would probably want to read manga's first century first, but all of these legit sound interesting to me, and I'll be looking them up to see if I can read them. It's been revised. It's a new version. We've got comics-related periodical journalism. Hey, look, as usual, Comic Tropes was not nominated. Now, we've got a bunch of different things here, but for my money, Sketched is the one that I go to here and there. So I would vote for Sketched. These are all worthy things. But I would say that even if it's not going to be me, I really feel like we should be at a point where a YouTuber or a podcaster should be nominated in these categories, just to keep it like modern. I feel like that, like, I feel even if not every episode is great on a YouTube show or a podcast, that there's some legit historical work going in. There's some legit opinions going in, sometimes interviews that are like really meaningful. For instance, I think that the comic book community at large respects the Comic Book Couples Counseling podcast. You know, they've hosted some panels. They get a lot of great guests. How is that not nominated? Even if it's not me, I don't know. I feel like it should be. Best comics related book. Got a book about Robert Crumb, Facing Feelings Inside the World of Raina Telgemeier by Raina Telgemeier. How Comics Are Made by Glenn Fleischman. I backed that as a Kickstarter, so I'm already a little biased here. Making Nonfiction Comics. Just told you I love nonfiction comics. Only What's Necessary. Charles Schultz and the Art of Peanuts by Chip Kidd. And Oops, I Just Catharted. 50 Years of Cathartic Comics by Rupert Kinnard. That's a tough one to choose from. That is really, really hard. I found this interesting because it's legit about the technical, like, printing process over the years, the history of how comics are made. I like that quite a bit, but all of these are creators and elements of comics that I think is fascinating. Yeah, a book about Charles Schultz and his philosophy on cartooning. He's so influential. People forget because it's like, you know, it became popular and he's been gone for a while, but Peanuts is really influential. We've got Best Publication Design, which is cool. We've got The Art of Manga, Essential Peanuts, Fruits Basket, Red Light Properties, Marvel Art of Michael Allred, and Weird Science, again by Toshin. I'm always a little biased towards liking Chip Kidd's work, so I'd probably go with the Essential Peanuts here, but that's me. Curtis Finlay with that Allred book does a lot of YouTube content about Marvel Epic collections. Nice. You'd vote Dan Goldman, Red Light Properties. Schultz has a great quote about Roy Crane being the GOAT. Nice. Roy Crane is definitely underrated. Best webcomic. I haven't read any of these. I already looked through. Maybe some of them are good. It's another blind spot. I can't read everything. I don't really know which of these are great. It is interesting that only one of them is on Webtoon. No, two. Several on their own website. Good for them. Best digital comic. Again, I haven't read any of these. But we've got one that's a manga, Deadass by Hake. Viz is publishing that. Huh. Overwatch 2 by Blizzard. Really? Publishing their own stuff. Best writer. This is definitely, again, going to be a competitive category because these are all people that we kind of know and have our favorites. I'm going to try to limit it to truly like what they wrote last year that gets nominated. We've got Dennis Camp, Scott Snyder, Mariko Tamaki, Kelly Thompson, James Tynion, and Stephanie Williams. And yeah, all of them put out some truly fantastic comics this past year. You know, I think I liked what the Ultimates did so much that I would give it to Dennis Camp. And I know that it's his year, and he's probably the odds-on favorite right now. These people are all super, super talented, and I wouldn't be mad if any of them won, but I think I'd vote for Dennis Camp. Yeah. We've got Best Writer-Artist, doing both. Juni Ba, Jamal Campbell, Jesse Lonergan, Cheng Shen, Linnea Sturt, and Kazumi Yamashita. But I'm going to go with Jesse Lonergan because I really think Drome was something truly special. That's my vote. It's been decided. We're going to move on. Best Penciler Inker. Oh, these are so hard to choose. Elsa Charretier, Sean Phillips, Javier Rodriguez, Chris Somney, Hayden Sherman, Eric Zawadsky. Because both Batman Dark Patterns and Absolute Wonder Woman came out last year, as much as I absolutely love Sean Phillips, you guys know I'm the hardest core fan of Criminal there is. I'm going to give it to Hayden Sherman this year. I would vote Hayden Sherman this past year because of not just good storytelling, but innovative compositions. Really, really found that added especially to Batman Dark Patterns, but also Absolute Wonder Woman. Quite a lot of thought put into the compositions. This is a hard one. This is a really hard one. Zawadsky, Somney, Lonergan, Javi, Sean Phillips. Javier Rodriguez has to be the one, right? Makes sense, but I would go with Sherman. Sherman, Somney. Sophie's Choice, yeah. It's tough, right? This is why it's fun to scroll through and just talk about it, because some of these are really competitive, and it's really hard. Best Painter or Multimedia Artist. I don't know when they rolled this category in, but I do like it. At the same time, I think that there's a few other people that should probably be nominated here. Anyway, Teddy Christensen, Kathy Malkasian, Chu, Martin Simmons, Mika Song, and Linnea Sterte. I think the favorite would probably be Martin Simmons, but I'm not so sure. That's one I have to think about more. Technically, I am, yes. If you're a professional, you can apply to be a voter. So all you have to do is provide credentials that you either make comics or work in the comics industry. And if you can provide credentials, you can get approved to vote. So when I say who I'd vote for, I probably am going to vote for that person. I haven't voted yet, but that's probably where I'll vote. Best Cover Artist. Look, these are some great artists, At the same time, I was a little surprised to not see some of the newer really popular cover artists out there, like David Nakayama, Peach Momoko, Dan Quintana. Like, these are some really, really popular artists. I feel like I feel like it's a shame that like somebody that primarily does covers like David Nakayama isn't in here. I think he should be. Anyway, we've got great people, don't get me wrong. Juni Ba, Nick Dragotta, Francesco Francavilla, Mateus Mananini, Javier Rodriguez, Hayden Sherman. For covers, personally, I would go with Francesco Francavilla. Love his sense of composition and simplifying an idea. I think great cover work. That's my vote. But I just do feel like that there are some artists that should be in here. I just write in Harambe anyway. Manhanini. That's a kind of fun one to say. But yeah, guys, if you do a show about comics, or if you have made a comic, you probably will get approved. You have to apply, but you do have to. You'd probably get approved. Dragata, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, why isn't Dan Moore up there? Dan Moore has done some fantastic covers this past year. I don't know. Best coloring. Ooh, always a tough competitive category. Jordi Belair, Nina Kupenda Gayard, Jesse Lonergan, Mateus Lopez, Javier Rodriguez, and Jose Villarrubia. That is a tough one. Jesse absolutely made color an important part of Drome. Javier Rodriguez doing some fantastic things with simplifying color. Yeah, isn't that weird that somebody like Mike Spicer didn't get nominated? But for my money, I would go with Mateus Lopez. I think Lopez is doing some beautiful, brilliant work with coloring, keeping it from getting too cluttered and painted and distracting from the artwork, using some real good color theory to set a scene, to feel a part of the artwork, not a part of the artwork. Villarrubia is super talented, teaches a lot. I get it. Drome, sure. Javier, I vote for the one with the J in their name. Uh-oh. That's going to need a little more clarification there, sir. But yeah, me, I'd go with Mateus. Best lettering, Janice Chang, Clayton Cowles, Hassan Otsmane Allahu. I always have trouble saying Hassan's name. I'm really sorry. Nate Picos, Ben Wiki. These are great letterers. Great letterers. I think in this past year, I would go with Clayton Cowles. I think that what they've done with a lot of these DC books has been organic and has not distracted from the story. I think that a few letters out there are starting to go with too many fonts, too many word balloon designs. I think that there should be different designs for different comics, no question. But I think sometimes it can get just a slight bit distracting. And anyway, I would just go with Clayton Cowles this year. Anyway, that's everything for the Eisners. Quite a lot of categories. What categories do you think should be in there that maybe aren't? I'm not sure, but sometimes I feel like there should be something specific to talk about, like European comics a little more instead of just international edition. We've gotten down to like Asia and then we've got international, but I feel like maybe it should. And then I think that there should be something, some consideration for more modern online reviews with podcasts and YouTube shows. I really do. All right. So that was a lot. I think it's time to pivot to doing reviews of the latest comics that came out this week, though. There's a lot more show. let's get started with the reviews of the week.
Let's review.
Review it.
The review.
The reviews are in. I repeat, the reviews are in.
Go to your reviews.
What?
Speaking of bad reviews,
Don't worry about that review.
Let's review all the facts.
All right, gentlemen, let's review.
Before we do, let's review.
Those reviews really came out fast.
Maybe we can review some right now?
I'm not going to review all that again.
Now let's review.
Not my worst review.
Let's review, shall we? To review.
I think I've reviewed about as much as I can.
You have no idea how close I cut that one to getting this up in time. That was close. Give me just a moment to shift over here so that I've got things laid out. You know, one thing I don't love about the current paper used in comics is I think it's too glossy. When I sit down to read my comics, I get glare on some of these pages, and I'm like holding my hand sometimes to block the light, and that's annoying. That's obnoxious. Everybody does it. I don't love it. But let's talk about some of the big books that came out this week. Starting with, is that a crease that I got there? It is. Hold on. Yeah. I was trying to center it so that I could show it a little better. My spine tick is right there. See that? Yeah, you see that. Yo, Absolute Batman 20. Very, very fun. Not a part of the bigger story, but we get a glimpse of... Is this going to focus? There. Look at that. Absolute Joker just sitting in his cave. In Absolute Batman, Joker seems to have a mansion with a cave beneath. Very interesting inversion. Don't know where that's going. Don't know what this is about. It's mostly a story about Batman talking to Joe Chill, the guy that killed his father in prison. And all of a sudden, the absolute version of Scarecrow just sort of emerges from the shadows in there and convinces him to kill himself. And Batman can't get in time to stop him. That's definitely different than what we've seen before. I feel like that's going to give this version of Bruce Wayne unresolved closure. You know, he's apparently, as Bruce Wayne, come to visit Joe Chill over the years in prison to understand like why he did this. He feels like he was hired to do a shooting at the zoo that ended up killing his father, but he's probably not going to get that answer from him. And I think that's an interesting bit of tragedy. I think that this version of Scarecrow is definitely creepier than the mainstream version. If they explain too much about him, it's not going to work, because right now he seems kind of supernatural. If they start saying that he's, just got science-based powers to turn into crows or something like that, that's going to be disappointing. We also get a small hint at the city's Robins initiative, which are, all the characters that have been Robin in the Batman comics, at least for the most part, work as a team here, and they have gigantic mechs. And yeah, somebody said those mechs better combine. I hope so too. We get a hint as to like how big they are on this cover with Batman here, the scale and the scope. It's fun. Absolute Batman should not be taken for a more grounded, realistic take on Batman. It's more modern in its thinking and its presentation of, society and stuff, but it is definitely not more realistic. Don't go in expecting that and you won't be disappointed. It's got horror and sci-fi and just a different way of looking at the elements of what makes Batman still Batman. I love it. I think he should just be, and that they should never really explain how he's making people like do horrible things to each other and themselves. You think it's too magical? I just think maybe, but I think that when you explain how it works too much, it becomes not scary. And right now, I'd call him really scary. Like with what he did to the guys in the farm and the threshing machine, that was pretty horrific. What he does, just sort of like stepping out of the shadows in a prison and killing someone, is creepy. And I don't want an explanation for it. I really don't. That's true. Good point. Magic does exist. In fact, Batman legit used magic to help his friend Waylon. Waylon got turned into a crocodile monster, but now he's human, except for his eyes. His eyes are still yellow. So he's got like a mystical enchantment that's keeping him human, but that's magical, and I'm fine with that. I like that. Yeah. We're seeing like hints that, Ozzy as Cobblepot seems really dangerous. And Two-Face looks pretty messed up. Riddler's acting really strange. But technically none of them have done anything criminal yet. They're just acting weird. Probably some of them will become villains. I hope not all of them do. I would love it if like the friendship could beat where that could take them otherwise. I hope so. I wouldn't say they need it. It's just part of this world. I liked it. I thought it was a really fun issue. I like that it does such crazy ideas and hasn't like tried to calm down and just adapt a popular existing arc or character in Batman. It's added these characters, but it usually does something very different with them to justify it. I like that. I don't have tons that I'm going to say about Transformers, but I wanted to drop in because we're almost 3 years into this run, and I loved that first year that was all Daniel Warren Johnson. Loved it. And then I loved his second year with Jorge on art and Dan writing it. Now Robert's written it, and we've gotten a couple different artists filling in for arcs. We got Dan Mora, which was pretty amazing. This is now the first by the new regular artist, apparently, Jason Howard, who did Astounding Wolfman with Robert, among other things. I think he also did Super Dinosaur, if I'm remembering right. It's not bad. And in some ways, it's the same sort of exaggerated, big shapes and cartoony proportions and stuff that we got with guys like Daniel Warren Johnson and Jorge Corona. But it's a lot more simplified, right? Like, this is a lot more simplified. I don't dislike it, but I don't like it as much. Maybe it'll grow on me. I want it to grow on me because I am still enjoying what Robert's doing with the story. He's giving me stuff that I like, where the characters have legit cool conflicts and stuff. This introduces a bunch of Decepticons, including ones from versions that I don't know because I haven't watched most of the cartoons, just the original. I like when we last saw Shockwave, he'd been like absolutely demolished by Optimus Prime, but apparently he's still existing like Darth Maul, just like a creature of hate that's keeping him going. And I kind of like that he's just got this little orb is all his head is now. I don't know. That's a good idea for a design. So it's given me some good action. It's given me some good character moments. I like the story. I think Robert's doing a very good job continuing the story in a way that feels organic to what existed before and giving us new ideas, like, a new Autobot leader, Alita 1, as now Alita Prime, and she harnesses the matrix of leadership in a way I've never seen done before. it manifests as this humongous ass energy sword for her to fight the Decepticons with. That's fun. That's cool. Yeah, it opened, goddammit. See, there was like a moment in here where she's like, open, you know, like she can't open it. And I thought that they were just going to redo what we saw in the Transformers movie where Ultra Magnus couldn't open it, but she does, and it does something different. Well, it doesn't open per se, it just turns into an energy sword. But I like that. I like that. I feel like he's throwing way too much in too little time. Okay. Maybe. I feel like they're giving their subplots time to build, like what they're doing with General Flag and splitting the Autobots up onto both Cybertron and Earth. I just am not in absolute love with the art. But I'm willing to give it a chance. I'm willing to give it a chance. I liked it. I do like it. I just don't love it anymore. I like the story too. The last arc ended at a very interesting place, and I like this Cybertron issue. I did too. But, you know, I grew up loving Transformers, right? And then season 3 happened, the one after the movie, where they all of a sudden got really cheap on the animation. Everything got really weird sci-fi with, like, you know, aliens just about every episode. Some annoying characters like Daniel and Wheelie. And I kind of got burned out on Transformers. And then, like, I didn't really like the live-action movies. Minus Bumblebee. I did like Bumblebee, but mostly I didn't like them. And this has brought back, like, a lot of my love that I had when I was youngest for Transformers. Because I just feel like the focus is still on a few Transformers, the characters on Earth, and it's not going too crazy. Like, if it feels like it belongs. Yeah, I never saw that. I think I was like in college by then. I don't know. I guess there were a few that were okay. That energy sword was recently released for one of the 13 Prime figures. I don't know about that. So are some of these, did you read this episode, this issue, I should say? Because it introduces a bunch of Decepticons, mostly in the background is sort of an army behind Shockwave. And I was like, I bet some of those were from like Beast Wars, or I don't even remember the names of the other like versions of the cartoons, but I bet you that some of them are. A little bit, but I think that like someday if they want to, they can bring him back. Or maybe they'll just rebuild him and he'll just go straight to Goldbug. I don't know. Well, I appreciate that restraint. Like, it exists in the same world. But I think that they're spending their time making us care about the main characters and the main plots before there's any sort of real big crossover. I would expect that this could go between 3 to 5 years before we get a big crossover. And I'm fine with that, because don't you guys agree that in Marvel and DC, when we have a big crossover event, it kills the momentum of individual titles? I think it just kills the momentum. So, yeah. I'm sure that someday Duke will go up against Starscream. Zero. This is a brand new continuity. Brand new. And I like that. That means that, like, it's not overwhelming to me. Yeah, I saw that there was, like, Sunstorm and Acid Storm, and they were, like, Decepticon jets that I'm pretty sure got toys back in the day. Anyway. I don't get the same vibe, because Hound is literally a member of the G.I. Joe team. And they just had that meeting with Optimus Prime and Duke. And I liked that. That was good. That's just me. Boy. You know, the only thing that gave me pause when I was going through the Eisners now and I was saying Dennis Camp for Best Writer is I don't get what he's going for with Ultimate Endgame. I think Ultimates, fantastic. Ultimate Endgame, not for me. I am not into this book at all. Most of this is a few of the Ultimates are in this encapsulated city where time runs differently that was designed to trap the Maker, right? And he's like potentially escaping. He's got his armies around the world of supervillains going on, and the other half of the Ultimates is battling, Asgardian monsters and things like that. And actually, that kind of stuff I don't mind too much. The art with the Dodsons that's set outside the city is pretty good. But the stuff that's happening inside the city is just so weird, and I'm not connecting with any of it. I don't know. It's like it's building up to like give us some sort of big reveal about Doom, who's a different Reed Richards, tortured by the Maker Reed Richards, but they don't quite get there. They don't quite do anything with it. It's time to just drop all the preamble and pretense and just go like hardcore, like, hey, I'm a Reed Richards that tortured you into becoming a different Reed Richards, and it's time to like finish all of this. That's interesting. Finishes with Maker remaking the universe into Midnight. It's a good idea, but I don't think that that's what they're going to do. Because in a way, then it would just be like he almost won and he just made another evil universe. But it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea at all. I don't know. I didn't like this too much. Last issue, they killed Spider-Man, so I don't know why he's on the cover. And if you didn't know, in both the regular comics, like the main Marvel Universe comics, and the Ultimate Comics, this week they killed Captain America in both of them. Obviously, I really think that they're both coming back. I really think they're both coming back. But for now, they killed them off. Always good to see you, Esteban. And congrats on all the comic news that has been coming out with your various projects. Very excited to see Death Vigil. Excited to see what you've got coming out. Thanks for joining us. The Maker basically has become microplastics, guys. That's why everybody in this sort of time capsule city that he's in has become a servant to him. He's put his microplastics into the air. People breathe it in. They inhale him. So they've sort of used that microplastics idea. And I like that. I like that, he's done some different things, but I just don't get what they're doing with this. I just don't get where it's going. It doesn't feel like it's building to a satisfying fight between good guys and bad guys. And we're just sort of like, I want to see by the end here, a war of attrition. We take this character off for each side. It's like a chess game. And we finally get to like the main characters at the focus. I'm not feeling it at all. And I'm so disappointed because I love what Dennis Camp is doing in the Ultimates, which feels so good, but this just feels very different. Wow, one issue left and we'll see how it all wraps up. I don't know. I can't predict it. And that's sort of good, but this issue of Dork had a really weird printing error for me. If anybody else out there picked up issue 4 of Dork, tell me if this happened to you. On the second to last page, I've got this like fold, right? But then I put it out and look, it's like, it's bigger than the page should be. It's like it wasn't cut and it was just folded in and then cut. So I don't know what happened with my issue. I'm sure that counts as a defect, but whatever. Weird, right? Weird printing error. Dork continues to entertain me in a great way. Even though it's selling so well, I feel like it's an underdog comic because I don't feel like a cartoony comic or a fantasy comic is typically going to be this popular with people. There's a couple things that it does very well beyond having great art. it has a story where, yes, there's an ongoing narrative of Dork having a quest, but each issue has him facing one obstacle and completing it. So each issue feels very satisfying in and of itself. It feels a little more episodic than I think we typically get. That's interesting. Boy, Bone is a huge bar to clear, but it does have a lot of things in parallel. I'll make big bucks in 30 years. I got to keep this issue. I'm not going to be around for 30 more years. Chicken is great. His supporting cast of a ghost chicken and a talking shield are great. So he's got companions that are weird. It's got really fun action. It moves at such a good pace. It's got such expressive characters. It's cartoony, but it's cartoony in the best way possible. It's got this animated feel where I can imagine like the in-between shots of like moving from one pose to the next and, you know, being expressive. I love it. Chris and Troopers, thanks for the company on Monday. Well, thanks for the super chat. Happy to have you here, always. I guess I don't understand what that means. Did Brett Booth do something for Dungeon Crawler Carl? Like a cover or something? I don't know. He didn't write it. Brett Bean. I said Brett Booth. In this specific issue, he goes up against two goblins. One tribe that's split between a brother and a sister that can't get along and, you know, just have a difference of opinion, even though they should be on the same side going up against this weird Cerebus dog. There's also a super charming guy called Barry that just like is always like raising his hand to get attention. It's like, oh, okay, I've got something to say. Excuse me. Barry's fantastic. Great action, great comedy. I legit chuckled to myself a couple times during this issue. So strong recommend. It's just that Dork impresses me because it's not typically what I'd consider a mainstream audience would be excited by, but it's really good. It is more violent than you would expect. It really is. But it's cartoony, so it's not like gross. It's just sort of like, oh, there's some stakes here. There's some stakes. It threads a line where the violence still means something. It's not like Wile E. Coyote gets blown up and then he's okay. It's not that. There are consequences, but yeah, there's more to it. Bean is working on the DCC graphic novel. DCC. I don't know. Hey, Izzy. Late night for me, and Dork is so much fun. It really is. You know, I missed it when it came out, and it was so popular, and so I go, I'll pick up the reprint, which I did. Actually, I think I got it digitally, and then I picked up the reprint. Yeah, I got it digitally, and then got issue 2, and I've really been enjoying it. So it does get a pretty strong recommendation from me. In fact, just to be clear, thus far, out of what I've talked about, Absolute Batman, Transformers, Ultimate Endgame, Dork issue 4 is the one I've enjoyed the most. Didn't really enjoy Ultimate Endgame, so that's no surprise. But Ultimate Batman was pretty cool. It's just that it's part of the middle of a big story. So, yeah, just putting them in order for myself. Oh, DCC is Dungeon Crawler Carl. Doy. I didn't realize that. I thought that the upcoming graphic novel was just taking the webtoon and putting it into print. But are they doing like two, like a webtoon one and an original one? Because if they're doing a Dungeon Crawler Carl that Brett Bean is drawing, I'm much more interested in that. I liked the premise on the free comic book day. I haven't read the books yet. I'm curious now. Let's go, Mets. I admire your loyalty. I never read Orkstein, but I do love James Stokos. So if he ever does, I'd go back and pick all that up for sure. Drawing an in-universe graphic novel. Okay, very cool. can actually keep this review somewhat brief, but Something is Killing the Children 47. We're almost done with the flashback about Jessica and Cecilia. Jessica was the one that trained ostensibly the main character of this book, Erica Slaughter. I think that this is an interesting bit of backstory. I read through it very quickly, despite it having a bit of dialogue. So it's paced well. The art is fantastic. I would just say that you have to be pretty into this book already. This isn't a great jumping on point right now. It gets a little hard sometimes, especially with some delays, to like remember exactly where the story is, especially because we've had a bunch of flashback stuff. I'm really ready for this book to get caught up in the present, which after this story, it supposedly should. I get what they're laying out and how it's relevant. And so there are some stakes that I'm invested in, but overall, I'm not as interested in these flashback issues or these backstories. I wish that they could have been worked in as subplots while we're focusing on the main character. I find Erica Slaughter a much more interesting main character in the modern day than who she was when she was in training or who her mentors were. I just don't find that as interesting. I do like this world quite a bit, so I don't regret picking this up each month. I really don't. But I'd have a hard time recommending like issue 47 to any of my friends here that were like, oh, what are you reading that's like really good right now? The first thing to my mind would not be, oh, you got to start right now on Something is Killing the Children. It probably reads also a lot better as a trade paperback, if I'm being honest. It probably will read much better there because it's paced pretty fast, even when it's scenes of characters talking. Yeah, I'd love to give it a higher review because I like it. It's just I'd have a hard time saying that like this is where you should jump in. If you've been reading it since the beginning, what can I tell you in terms of a review that's helpful? I'd say, yeah, it's pretty cool, right? And we could probably talk about like what some of this backstory means or where it's going. I don't have as much to say to somebody that isn't as familiar with it. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and they have done some like miniseries and stuff like that, and I think that overall that's the way to do it. I think that that's the way to do it as compared to these big arcs of like, you know, up to 6 or 7 issues of a flashback. It's been a long time since we focused on Erica Slaughter hunting monsters in the modern day. Yep, that's basically what I'm getting at. It's written for the trades, and it's tough to jump in the middle of it. I picked up something that I didn't read when it first came out. I haven't finished reading it. That's why I've got a little bookmark here. But this is a book, Into the Unbeing. It's sort of a sci-fi horror book about nature, like a post-apocalyptic world where these like pretty egocentric scientists feel that they can solve this big problem and heal the world. But I think that they're being, I think they've got too much hubris. I got it because it's drawn by Hayden Sherman. And I was like, well, let's take another look at some early Hayden Sherman. Because I remember being very impressed with Hayden's work in the Scott Snyder Wildfires story. And then, of course, have fallen in love with things like Absolute Wonder Woman and more recently Batman Dark Patterns. So it's been interesting and cool to go back and forth to see more. So far I like this story. Yeah, they're like, why is this cave in the middle of the desert, like, why does it look like a face? It looks like it's some sort of monster being or something that's like frozen like this. We should go in and investigate. And it's like, no, you probably shouldn't. That's probably a terrible idea. I could be wrong, but I'm enjoying it so far. I don't think I've read a lot of stuff by Zach Thompson. What else has Zach written? Cemetery Kids Don't Die. Oh, Blow Away. I did like Blow Away. I forgot about that. That was a sort of a crime book where somebody was taking photos on the Arctic of nature and stuff, and then sees like way in the distance somebody seemingly kill someone that's climbing an ice mountain, and so it becomes a little bit of a paranoid thriller like Rear Window or The Thing. Yeah. So it's an interesting book. I'll have to read more of it before I can tell you if it gets my full-throated endorsement. Just some quick ones. Archie versus Army of Darkness, way funnier than it should be. It really works well. You wouldn't think that like violence like Evil Dead could work with Archie, but it does. And the one-liners by Ash totally fit the aesthetic of the world of Archie. So I'm into it. This was one of my favorite issues of Blood and Thunder. Issue 13. So it's been going over a year now. Benito Cereno, artist EJ Sue, M. Sassy K on colors, Robert Kirkman contributing to the overall ideas and world. This is great. This is so good. So Bloodso is an alien bounty hunter, and all you need to know is starting in this issue, she's been locked up in the galaxy's toughest prison, and she's going to break out. And we get told a lot of like her plans and who she is because she's been writing a diary under the prison bed for whoever's there next. Cool. The art is fantastic because it just becomes wall-to-wall action. Like she crawls through the sewage lines and just is messing bad guys up left and right. The action in this is so damn good. Look at this. Look at her like drop a knee on this guy's leg to crack it. Using like an Aikido move to grab a gun out of a guy's hand. It's just, and it's so well paced. It just moves. It's so good. I loved it. This is my favorite issue of the book so far. Hey, sister, I had a dog training class orientation tonight. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you and Bunker are getting some training. That's awesome. It's good to have you here. This is some of EJ's best. I think EJ excels when this is just me speculating, when he gets excited about what he's drawing. He's done some like Godzilla covers and murals and stuff that are just absolutely amazing. Follow him on Instagram, and when he just doodles for himself, some of that stuff can look so detailed when he just feels like drawing dogs or women or something like that. He's just practicing on something. But this action scene is just, it reads so damned well. It moves at a great pace, and I'm rooting for Blood. She's an underdog. I'm just rooting for her, and I loved all the action beats in it. So damn good. Really fun book. Great art. Pretty funny. Oh yeah, this is a good jumping on point. Issue 13. The stuff that happened before, she was like, on a bounty hunter mission and came to sort of empathize with this alien that she was after. Really interesting. But I'd say that like maybe the book should have started here and that should have been backstory. Maybe. This is a great jumping on point. Issue 13. Awesome story. You're gonna like this chick. She's a really cool protagonist, and the art in it is amazing. This is a really strong comic. Really do recommend it. I don't know why Bad Idea did this other than they've got weird ideas on how to promote their books. This book is called The Machine, issue 0, but really it's like issue 3 of The Ordained. It's called Ordained Special. Ordained is this book where a guy used to be, special forces, and he decided to become a priest. For various reasons, the mafia is now trying to kill him, and he won't kill, but he's still a badass fighter. And he's making short work of like the henchmen that are thrown at him, the gangsters. So this professional hitman has been called in, and we get a whole issue explaining who the hitman is, and he's great. He's really interesting. He's one of these like smart but capable guys that just has a specific work ethic. You know, he's only going to take jobs that fit into his schedule. He doesn't care about the reasoning behind it. He just takes the job. He's not going to kill anyone for free. It's really, really good. Same writer and artist as The Ordained, and this is just sort of like a side story to build up the villain. And I think it's good pacing, to be honest, because we've got like two things where the story's escalating in The Ordained, and now we learn just how dangerous this hitman is with a whole dedicated issue. It's really, really good. Anyway, so it's called The Machine Issue 0, and it is a standalone story. It totally is. But you're going to get the most out of it if you're reading The Ordained, because it's building up to that. I liked it. What else did I read this week? I guess, you know, I think Gene Lin Yang is becoming a fantastic Ninja Turtles writer, because he's doing stuff that's new, but that like feels like stories we should have gotten before. In this specific arc, the Ninja Turtles' parents, Splinter and their mother Shen, have both been pulled out of the afterlife. And it's kind of cool just seeing their dynamic as like actual like sort of children with a literal father and mother. And it's all interspersed, so it can't be all slow talky talk, with a big battle against the Foot Clan and this witch Shinigami. It's wonderful. It's got some really emotional beats. It's got some clever planning by Leonardo. It's got some unexpected stuff from Michelangelo, who is always thought of as sort of like, you know, the baby of the family and like the most immature one. But he's also the only one that's gone out of his way to learn Japanese. The others haven't bothered because they live in modern day New York, but he speaks Japanese, so he can communicate with their mother and father, which is awesome. And there's just nice heartfelt moments there where they save each other and like, you know, connect. So it's a great blend of action and emotion that this book needs to work right. The Turtles like are very versatile. You know, they can be sci-fi, they can be street level crime, they can be supernatural, they can be all these different things. But I would say that as time goes on, the thing I noticed that makes a Ninja Turtle story work the best is focusing on the family elements. Usually that's the brotherly bonds. Sometimes it's the father-son dynamic. What we're getting here that we've never seen before is the mother and son dynamic. I really like it. I really like that a lot. It's been fun. It's been super fun. Yeah, this is like the Jason Aaron run was good, but this is a lot more interesting to me. I'm really enjoying Ninja Turtles again. It's become a book I'm excited to read. So I do recommend it. I do recommend this run. And I love G.I. Joe, but we are also 328 issues in. So all I can say, though, is you can always pick up a G.I. Joe issue and follow along. Larry Hama has that old school aesthetic of characters all call each other by their names in the first few pages so that you know who everybody is. And it's always got, you know, one obstacle to go on. But it's also built on some mythology. Like this character, Dawn, has Snake Eyes' memories implanted into her by a brainwave scanner. She's hit by a big explosion in this, and it jostles out this time. Back in issue 7 of G.I. Joe, going all the way back to issue 7, Snake Eyes had been captured by Cobra and put in the brainwave scanner. And this reveals that Dr. Venom put like this sort of like a Trojan horse to like get activated at some point when no one would expect it. And it looks like it's about to blow up, and Dawn will sort of like, you know, be mind controlled by Cobra. So that's kind of fun. Let me draw a little and we'll just chit chat. we'll just chit chat a little bit. Okay, let me talk about comic tropes first. So, I put a new episode of Comic Tropes out today, and it's kind of bombing, but that's okay. It happens. It means that for the month, YouTube earnings will be very, very slim, but that's why I've got the Patreon. That's why, I do a show like this and can get a few super chats. It helps offset those weaker months. But I don't regret it because I really feel like I got to talk about an artist that I really enjoy and is worth talking about. I'm talking about Sanford Green, and I focus primarily on his work in Bitterroot and what makes that special. But it really, I'm proud of the episode. So I hope you, if you haven't seen it, I hope you consider giving it a watch. I think it's very dense, like what I talk about. I make points, and I grabbed a lot of images to make it all like sort of work right. I hope not overwhelming with how many images. I think I don't know. I'm just proud of it. I really am. So I hope you consider watching it. Yeah, Sanford Green has a really unique art style, and I also think it's like kind of encouraging when I show you his work from the 90s. It looks very different. And he really had to grind away for about 10 years before he started getting regular work by Marvel and DC. And it just shows that hardly anybody's an overnight success. They put in a lot of work, and it's interesting to see that he found a way to make some adjustments to his art to really make it his own. Yeah, I hope you'll consider watching it. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Interesting book, interesting creator who truly balances a lot of his work life with teaching, which I think is interesting. There's plenty of people that do a little teaching, but their main job is comics. I almost think that when I look at Sanford Green, it's almost the opposite. That like teaching is his priority, and comics is a very close second. But he's balancing it. He's balancing it. I think more people hopefully will learn a little bit about what an HBCU is, because maybe I'm being naive, but I feel like a lot of people don't know what an HBCU is. Not yet. Yeah, Sanford has a great Instagram where beyond the comics that he's drawing, he shows his design stuff. He really does excel at design. I don't know if I pushed that enough, but he likes doing design, and he does some great design work. And he does stuff for like clients, like Peloton and a certain whiskey, and you'll see stuff like that there too. I know it's unrelated, but R.I.P. Tom Kane. Thank you for the super chat, and I feel bad because you super chatted this, but it's not coming to me who Tom Kane is. Who's Tom Kane? Well, I'll have to read up on that, I guess. Sorry, it's not coming to me. I wish I knew. Sorry, I'll start talking in a sec. I was just getting a little lost in having fun doing little hatching stuff. Oh, a voice actor? Thanks, folks. Sorry, I wasn't familiar. Professor Utonium in Powerpuff Girls. Haven't seen that show, I'm afraid. But I'm sure I saw or heard him, I should say, in something else. Maybe he could, but that's where he went, and I think he's got a lot of love for his alma mater, which is really cool. What else? Oh, talk a little bit about some media that's out there. I saw a movie that I want to give a strong recommendation to. Now, if you're not into horror, maybe it's not for you because it is a little intense. But I saw Obsession, and it was fantastic. I think right now I'd rank it personally as my second favorite movie of this year. And I'd put Project Hail Mary as number 3 for the record. My favorite movie of the year is Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. That thing was hilarious. I haven't seen anything that good in a while. Yeah, I saw Obsession. It's a horror movie, and super simple premise, really. A guy wishes that the girl that he's got a crush on would love him. And it goes so bad. It's definitely, a classic monkey's paw situation where, the wish is going to be interpreted kind of literally and not go your way. But beyond that, it's a character study too, because this guy, we're sympathetic to him when the movie starts. I won't say why, but you're positioned to be empathetic to him and sympathetic. And so for a while you might be, and then you slowly realize that maybe he's the problem. Super engaging character work. The lady that plays the main character, who becomes very weird, wow, what a performance she had. Just incredible. Really, really cool. Somebody, was it Steve Sorensen, mentioned that she was an actress on Lois and Clark. I haven't watched that show, so I didn't know that, but she was incredible in this movie. Had a lot to work with. Really, really cool. Anyway, does have some very scary scenes here and there. Modestly budgeted, not like a big idea. Instead, it really focuses on the characters. So good, folks. Really, really recommend it. You found it weird that I became aware of Bitterroot late? Yeah, sometimes I think it's weird too, though. All I can say is, we all will have blind spots where you might even hear that something's good, but you just haven't gotten to it yet. And that was me, I think, with Bitterroot until Sinners came out, and I really liked Sinners. And then someone told me, Bitterroot isn't Sinners, but it has some similar vibes and similar stuff. I was like, well, I'll give that a shot then, because I've been hearing good things. I did know that it won an Eisner. And then I was like, wow, yep, missed out. I knew about Sanford Green's work. Why didn't I try this sooner? I think in my mind, I thought it was a much less action-packed idea for some reason. And I don't know. It's great. It's fantastic. So I do regret that I didn't catch it faster, but better late than never. I truly believe that's a real thing. And it's an awesome book. Really, really good. So a little slow to it, but I love it. Anyway, Obsession gets my highest recommendation. Yeah. It's funny. I forget the director's name right now off the top of my head, but he does a bunch of comedy stuff. And I was like, wow, well, so did Zach Krieger of Weapons and Barbarian. He was a comedy guy that did, has done some sort of lower budget horror stuff that was really good. And then I started going, weren't weren't there some Australian guys that did, like, what was it, like talk to her or something like that? I feel like that one was oh yeah, Curry Barker is Obsession. I don't know. I feel like there's a couple Australian guys that have done some horror recently that have a little bit of a comedy background too. And so yeah, it's interesting seeing these guys that have sort of a modest background be able to take on a different genre and excel so well at it. Strong recommendation. TV. We could talk about TV a little for comic books. Yeah, I'll talk about The Boys. So the reaction I'm seeing online is that a lot of people don't love The Boys this season. I have tried to see it from other people's point of view, but I'm really enjoying it. I don't know if it's going to be able to satisfyingly wrap up everything with one more episode, but I think it probably will, because I feel like they didn't try to introduce a whole lot of new subplots and ideas this year, so they probably knew where they want to end, and they're just sort of getting there. I might have liked a little bit more of Huey this year, because he's, the main character. Overall, I would say that's a relatively minor complaint from me, because I don't know, I find it's been funny and engaging. I think that the biggest criticisms people have are that, too much Soldier Boy. They feel like there's too much focus on, going into building out these spin-off shows. Yeah, I'll talk about that soon. But great point. Yeah, Jordan Peele is another guy that went from comedy to horror very, very well. Let's see. Hey, sorry I joined in late, but any updates on your housing situation and how much of your collection you were able to salvage? Good luck with everything, man. Love your vids. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Let me finish my train of thought on The Boys, but thank you for the super chat, and I will address that. I agree. I thought that each of the characters have had good character moments. I don't know exactly what will happen. It's not going to be like the comics. I'm okay with that. I think that it took the premise and it satirized capitalism and consumer culture, the pharmaceutical industry, things like that, in a much better and more precise way than the comics satirized superheroes, which was kind of amusing, but I've also seen before. And it was a little too mean-spirited for me, the comic. Butcher really treated everybody like crap. Did some really horrible things to people that was played for a laugh, but I was like, that's just so mean. I don't know. Whereas the show, I just get that it's supposed to be really over-the-top satire. I don't know. It works for me, but I get it that it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I do get that. I don't think the finale will be anything like the books. But I do personally think that they're going to take out Homelander probably very easily at the beginning. I just don't think that that's the overall emphasis of the show, a big fight. It'll be something. They probably saved a lot of money for this too. Just looking at how much special effects they've done this year versus other years, I think they've saved a lot of their budget for the final. So they'll do something big, but probably pretty quick, and then focus, I think, on Fallout with where the world is at, and they might adapt how, I won't say what, but how the comics sort of go into their final storyline with Butcher and Huey. They might still do that. And I think that would be satisfying. I don't know. The comic was too mean-spirited for me. Anyway, there's a lot of people I see on social media posting about it, but I don't know how much of that to take realistically, because I truly believe that there are a lot of bots out there trying to sow dissension by just posting about controversial things and trying to get people to argue. I really do believe that there's a lot of that on social media. I think social media is very dangerous for us and not healthy at all. So I don't know how much of it is real criticism, if that makes sense. I'll talk about the Punisher in just a moment, but I wanted to address the super chat asking for an update on my house. So there's been some progress. This whole thing has been way slower than I expected it to be. Way slower. But the good news is that I resolved the first stage of things, which is I had a company I just had to authorize fast to do the water mitigation, soaking up the water, emptying all of our furniture and objects. We used it like as storage, a lot of the downstairs. Had to empty whatever that could be saved, throw stuff out, treat the mold, make sure that all of that was taken care of, and do demolition for like the walls and the floors so that, it could all not poison us. The bottom line is, we did that and I authorized it at a certain budget. And then they've been fighting with me, trying to get way more than they promised it would be for a top dollar. And the short version is I finally resolved that at a fair price. I was really scared for a while there that I was going to owe about $9,000 more than the top price they agreed that they would cap it at, because that's what they were trying to get me for. But I fought them, and I won't give you all the gory details, but I resolved it, and I'm very happy that I resolved it at what I did. Because the house repairs, which is the next stage, is going to be the really expensive stuff. And I wanted to be sure that I had, the money from what we've raised to actually do what we need to do. So the frustrating part is how long that took to get paid and resolve. I only resolved that on Friday, but it is done. The next step is to do the repairs to my house. The walls, the floors, and the plumbing. We had to get rid of basically our tub had to be smashed and removed. That's going to be expensive to replace, but whatever. We raised funds, so I feel happy about that to a degree. The first company that got good reviews and came out in person to, assess everything, just ghosted me. So I got to find other contractors to get quotes from. It's very annoying. So that's where I'm at now. It's just going slow. And even once I begin that, I would say that process will probably take 6 to 8 weeks to rebuild everything. As far as what I lost, because that was asked too, I don't know the specifics yet. I was just grabbing stuff that was wet and throwing it away, and grabbing stuff that was still dry and putting it in these short boxes that I've got back here. And I haven't had any extra free time beyond my job and making episodes. I haven't had any free time to go through those and see what I have and try to remember what I don't have. I didn't have time to throw anything that was wet in list it or try to memorize it. I just did not have time for that. I had to work too fast. I would say as to how much I had to throw out, about 25% of my comics, about 25%, which is sad, but mostly that was modern stuff instead of key issues. So I'll be okay there. It's more what's going to be more expensive is replacing all the furniture and stuff that we lost. The rugs, the couches, the beds, the wooden shelving, that stuff all got ruined. So all of that gone, not getting back. One of Chrissy's expensive violins, that's wood, that's ruined. moisture got into it. It's gone. Books, some electronics, clothes, whatever. It could have been worse. But yeah, so I don't know exactly what I lost. It's an interesting question. I'll get over that. I'm not trying to, when I was raising funds, I wasn't trying to raise money to replace that stuff because I just consider that just a loss. It just happens in life. I was just trying to be able to fix my house and move forward. And I think we will be able to. So that's good news. Like, I'd ultimately say that this is a positive. Like, we're moving in a good direction. So, yeah. Yeah, it was tough. I guess what they found as they were cutting out the wall was the wood behind the tub was starting to rot pretty bad already. Like, there might have been a leak already, and the only way they could access that was to get the tub out, and it was built into the wall, so it had to just be destroyed. I say tub, but it was more of a shower tub. So it unfortunate, and it was a really nice one too. It was like one of the selling points of the house. Like, it was a high-end bathroom, but they were like, we have to be able to get at the wall, and the only way to get at it is to destroy this. So I was like, oh, yes. I lost some. I don't know exactly what we lost there. I think Chrissy lost one old painting that she made, if I'm remembering right. I lost a bunch of sketches I've done, like, on this show and stuff like that. Whatever. I can live with that. I lost all my prints by my friend Mark Englert that I've bought over the years. So I was kind of disappointed about that. Yeah. It isn't. Yeah. It was, I was like looking at it. I was like, yeah, I really have no idea how you would remove this other than destroy it at this point. So it had to be done. Yeah, just real quick, I will say that I did see the new Lanterns trailer today. I thought it was stronger than the first one. I hope it's a good show. I like the casting. So fingers crossed. I like the trailers, all I'll say. More of a teaser, but yeah. What else was I going to... Oh, I was just going to say, I also watched the Punisher special. And talked about this a little with the news and stuff, but... I would say I liked it. I didn't love it. It needed like another pass, I think, on the script. That's just me. Because it retread too much of the same ground that we've seen before. And I think John Bernthal is a great actor, actually. And Marvel's really lucky to have got him for the Punisher, but they've kind of wasted him. He's been really good in Daredevil. I think he's always been good in Daredevil. I didn't love either season of his show. There were moments that were okay, but some of it was bad. Just to answer my sister's question, a couple things I am changing, Chris, Jeannie. I'm keeping valuable things like on risers or shelves, and I'm using some plastic boxes for comics if they go on the floor, and we'll just be checking on the sump pump more often. Yeah. Anyway, good question. Thank you. But it was probably a fluke that this happened. It was the odds of the sump pump failing with no warning are honestly pretty low, because we did check on it here and there, and it was a weird thing. Maybe I might get a backup one, battery powered, or if I don't do that, I'll get like a warning sensor. So I will be getting something. Anyway, oh yeah, there are definitely good Punisher stories. The first miniseries is great. The beginning of the second ongoing is good. I think almost everything that Ennis and Dylan did, especially Welcome Back Frank, is a blast. There's a few good stories at the beginning of Punisher Warzone with John Romita Jr. on art. The beginning of Punisher War Journal was pretty interesting. So there's definitely tons of interesting stories interspersed. I think Barracuda is a great villain, and so is Nucci. I think Jigsaw could be a good villain, but they kind of wasted him in the MCU. That was a disappointment for me. But yeah, there's lots of good Punisher stories. There's also lots of average Punisher stories, but yeah, there's plenty to adapt from that's good. And I think they adapted some of that in this, and they were trying to be modest, clearly, with like their goals here. They introduce a couple villains, but they don't have Punisher go after them. You know, like that's to be potentially used later. The only important thing for this is that the villains put a hit out on Punisher for a ton of money, which means hundreds of expendable goons are just running into Punisher and getting ground up. And that part was fun. I would say the first 20 minutes or so, just kind of redundant because we've seen that before. Maybe you haven't watched the other Punisher stuff, in which case you could watch this and get a full, complete story, okay? It's a 1 hour special. If you've seen Punisher before, it's a little redundant for what they've done in the MCU, you know, with him trying to give up being the Punisher and being drawn back in. Who cares? That's not an interesting story anymore. But the action sequences were great. They were really fun, man. And Punisher has to make a couple moral decisions between saving people and, you know, absolutely punishing and decimating a bad guy. And the thing that makes Punisher a little likable is that he does make the right decision when he's put in situations like that. I agree. A lot of Ennis's, almost all of Ennis's Punisher stuff is really, really good. The Max series has some great stories. It's got some good origin stuff for him. Oh, and personally, I did like the Jason Aaron 12-issue run the other year where the Hand recruits Punisher and makes him become their leader. Like, I thought that actually was a really cool story. So, I just say, like, the drama stuff that they build up to like make you care about the Punisher, some of the stuff that they've got going on in his city and stuff is fine. You know, they introduce like who he's interacting with, and that stuff's fine. But the stuff with him, you know, having PTSD and wondering if he should still, you know, continue his mission, we've seen it before, and it's too redundant. I think it's the stuff that interests John Bernthal the most, but someone needs to tell him, you've done it. It's time to move on and just do an action story at this point. And I get that might not be the most interesting thing to an actor, that the Punisher doesn't have the deepest character after a certain point. You know, once you get past his origin, he's kind of a serial killer that just happens to go after bad guys. But they found a way to make it work for Dexter, so I'm sure you could find a way to make it work for Punisher. I'm not sure yet. I might stay up here. I kind of like this sitting at this desk. And if you watched my new episode, you may see that I rearranged things a little bit. The spinner rack used to be over here, but now I had to, like, because of like how tight it is, I've got like my camera over here aimed at more of an angle. So it was showing the corner of my room, which was just sort of like blue and empty. I moved my spinner rack over there, and I've also like set up some LED lights that I can change the color of. And I think it like once I can also get the audio and the main lighting done for Comic Tropes, I might like to do both Comic Tropes and Comic Tropes After Dark in this room, even though it's kind of tight. I like it. No dinosaurs. Ennis cracked a formula, introduced a grounded, irredeemable villain. Frank tracks them, Frank fights them, Frank kills them. It really, I figured the microphone out to stop the crackling and stuff, but I feel like I could still do better. But yeah. Since Punisher himself isn't always that interesting, it was usually more interesting to either introduce somebody that you wanted Punisher to be able to save, or introduce a really interesting villain that you wanted to see get punished. And Punisher was just the mechanism by which one of those things would happen. So it is. I will say this. It's cramped in here. It doesn't look like it. And I've designed it to not look cramped. But like where I sit and how close I am to like everything's very, very close to me. So I feel a little cramped. People don't like John Watts? I don't have a strong opinion. Dude, I don't think he would, but personally, I love some of that Punisher stuff that goes for a completely different story. I think Frankencastle was really interesting, and I think that the Jason Aaron Punisher becoming the Beast for the Hand was really interesting. I think that both of those were really cool. I don't know how firm the invitation is. I need to follow up. Like I heard that that there was somebody that was interested in me being on a panel, but I haven't had time to follow up. I think plenty of YouTubers have very small rooms that look bigger on camera. And that's what I'm trying to design this to look like. I'm not like bumping into stuff like left and right as I move around. But when I film in here, and even doing this where I don't have as many lights on, it does get pretty warm. That's why I took off my sweatshirt. But if I open the door so that I get like, you're going to get more echo, and my cats are definitely going to come in and interrupt. So I have to keep it kind of segmented and separated. Got to keep it separated. But I think that that's all the comic book related media I absorbed this week. Next show, I'll have seen the finale of The Boys, and I can decide if it resolved in a satisfying way or not. Again, I try not to do spoilers, just give my overall opinion, but I'm not going to spoil anything for people who aren't up to date on that. But as far as like things that I would recommend, strongly recommend Obsession. Strongly recommended Obsession. Boy, did I think that was something special. That was worth seeing in the theater because of really good sound design and lighting and pacing. Like it's good to see on a big screen. Really do recommend it. If something's good, and that's really good. What else? And then Punisher, I can only sort of give 1.5 thumbs. But the 1.5 thumbs, like the positive part, is really positive. You might be able to convince me, Dave. I'm going to have a really busy couple of days coming up. I work tomorrow all day, and then on Wednesday, I've really booked myself solid. I'm getting a haircut first thing in the morning, need that desperately. And then I'll go to the comic book store, and hopefully I'll get to see Dave there. And then as soon as that's done, I'm getting home to work on the next episode, which I think will be about Bilquis Evely. And then I am seeing my friend Martin from Hong Kong. Every once in a while, he comes back to Seattle, where he's originally from, but he lives in Hong Kong now. So I'm going to hang out with him for dinner. I'm still trying to decide where we should go for dinner. And then, so Wednesday is going to just sort of be really full, like going back and forth, because I have to drive really far to get to like where I get my haircut in the comics, like to Tacoma. It takes like 35-40 minutes for me. Blech. Yeah, that's where I shop, Stargazer, but it's a little far for me. Yeah, love Helen of Windhorn. God, I loved it. So I'm excited to talk about Bilquis. And honestly, I'll probably mix in talking quite a bit about Mateus Lopez. I talked about how I'd probably choose him for best colorist this year in the Eisners. Stargazer, baby. From Seattle, big in Hong Kong. If I was rich, I would probably enjoy going back to Hong Kong again. I've been to Hong Kong 3 times. It's a very interesting city. It's not my favorite in the world, really, but I do find it interesting and cool. I wish I had enough money to travel to like Europe and Hong Kong and Vietnam, New Zealand, Greece. All these are so cool places in the world. There's so many places I want to be, but can't go to them all. I miss Japan a lot, but trying to keep my expenses down as much as I can. And it's a bummer. If you guys have looked into traveling at all, fuel costs have gone way up, so prices on flights have gone up. Hong Kong does not have a lot of comics, but it does have a comic book culture. And they've got like a little part of one of their parks in Kowloon that's called like the Comic Book Stars Avenue or something like that, it translates to. And they've got like from Chinese manhwa that was produced and published in Hong Kong over the years. They've got like statues of those characters. There's a sort of library / mini museum about its history. There's a guy that's very popular there. He's the Stan Lee of Hong Kong comics, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Tony Wong, and I did make an episode about him one time when I was in Hong Kong. So, yeah, I've read a little bit of Tony Wong manhwa, and I'd say check out my episode about Tony Wong, where I filmed a bunch of it in Hong Kong. Not all of it, but a bunch of it. It was cool. But as far as comic book stores, it's not much. Honestly, they're very cramped, very tiny. Lots of imported American comics for the most part. Ugh. Kowloon is no. You're thinking of the walled city of Kowloon. That must be what you're thinking of. But they didn't tear down Kowloon, the area. You're thinking of the walled city, right? The walled city I have seen, actually, because I first went there in '89. Flew over it. It has been torn down there. Comic-Con, yep, Hong Kong. First Hong Kong Comic-Con is this week. They've got a beautiful, massive convention center against the harbor. Really cool place. I gave a little bit of thought to going. It might have been sort of a last-minute idea, but I was giving some thought to going until the house flooded. Oh, that's fun. Where's somewhere in the world you want to go that you've never been? Lots of places. I would say that towards the top of the list for places I haven't been that I'd like to go to, Germany, New Zealand, Brazil. Those 3 are sort of towards the top of my list right now. I'd like to check those 3 off. No, Kowloon is a whole area of Hong Kong. I'm simplifying it. The walled city is gone. Any of the tropers here have a private jet? I'm trying to get Chris to go to Tokyo Comic-Con this year. I'd love to, but I don't know if I can really afford it. Like, and Dave's saying, like, well, if you don't go to New York like you always do, maybe Tokyo. But I'm like, I don't know. Wait a minute. Somebody just solved it. I'll just swim to Tokyo. What was I thinking? That's what I'll do. Sorry I didn't finish inking this. I'm just taking my time because it's coming out pretty well, and I just want to take my time adding tons and tons of texture to this. I'm just going to play with like lots of pens. Tokyo Comic-Con does have a lot of American comics, but it has a lot of Japanese and international creators as well, and it would just be an excuse to go to, Japan again. The restaurant that we had been to, Jeannie, in Kowloon, Jumbo's Floating, whatever it was called, like Jumbo's Floating Restaurant, maybe, it burned down in a very suspicious set of circumstances. But I did get to go back there the last time I was in Hong Kong. I went like within a year of it burning down. At Wonders is a really cool store in Jimbocho. I like At Wonders. I like looking at the movie stuff that they've got. They've got lots of posters and little books to promote all sorts of movies. I like looking at that. No, haven't really been anywhere else in China. So I would definitely go to Shanghai if I had an opportunity. I mean, some of this is shallow, but I've been to 4 of the 6 Disneys. So, and it wouldn't be hard to go to Disney Paris. It's not a priority. But there's a part of me that wants to go to Shanghai, and if I did, like, check it off so that I could, eventually just say, yeah, I've been to all 6 Disneys. Oh, I remember what you're talking about. Right. Up on that hill. Yes. I'd go to Shenzhen. If I had an opportunity, I'd go so many places. Oh, there really should be a trash movie up by now. I'm sorry, folks. Just to be clear, Jim and I did record one, and I think it's going to be really, really funny. But I haven't had time to sit down and write the time codes for Jamie, our editor. I really need to give him those so that he can edit the episode. But I've been just so busy, I haven't had time. I'll never tell. I'll never tell. Remember Brittany Murphy? I'll never tell. At Wonders is kind of wacky. Apparently, they hate having American comics because they are only like 3 to 4 ardent customers. Really, it seems to not sell. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, At Wonders is a good-sized bookstore in Jimbocho that has more modern stuff than a lot of the smaller, older bookstores in Tokyo, but they also have a pretty good manga section, a pretty good movie section, and it's the only place I've seen that really has a dedicated American comics section, like back issues that you can like flip through just like here. I don't know. I really should eat something. I think I've got salad in the fridge, so that's probably what I'll have. Have you read any of the Dark Horse Legends imprint comics? I mean, if you're talking back when they were coming out, I was reading stuff like Hellboy, whatever Frank Miller was putting out under Legends, which I think included Sin City, stuff like that. Next Men, but I didn't really like Next Men. Was Concrete released under Legends? It might have been. Oh, it rearranged the whole store. Man, guess I got to go back after all. Add some protein to your salad. I should. Chrissy made me some chicken for lunch today, so I did eat today. Heaven's Gate. Interesting idea. Interesting. Don't know exactly when the revived Concrete is coming out. Did get some news a while back that, like, I think in February they announced that it would be coming back, but I don't know exactly when. The last thing I ate was some chicken for lunch. Do I prefer drawing or writing? I would say I prefer drawing, but I think I'm a lot better at writing, and I like writing. If you go to Tokyo, will you go to Japan Book Hunter's shop? If I ever go with Dave at the same time, I feel like that would be crazy not to, because obviously Dave and all of a sudden I'm blanking on his name. Japan Book Hunter. I'm sorry, I've never met him in person, so I'm blanking all of a sudden on his name. If I went with Dave, of course I'd like to meet him. He seems like a really cool guy that has some interesting stuff. Sean, thank you. Oh man, Simonson Store's issues are so good. You got it at Wonders? They got a big collection recently? Nice. June 17th is when the new Concrete comic comes out. I knew it was the summer. I didn't know exactly when. Thank you so much, King of New York. Fun to talk about all this comic book stuff. You guys have some great questions and good information for me tonight. I don't know what I'm going to eat right now. I think I've got a salad. I don't know if we've got any protein that I can put in it. I hope I do. I've been skipping meals lately. It's bad for my metabolism, but I'm not burnt out. I don't feel burnt out, but I do feel so busy. Like, I just feel like I've got no extra time to fit in what I'd like to do, which is I'd really like to revise my comic book script of the werewolf story. And if that went well, do some others. I have not done a video on Paul Chadwick, but I would be very interested in potentially doing that. I would say Chrissy does 95% of the food shopping. She does a good job. And she cooks a lot for me, which without me asking, which I'm very grateful for. I think I've got it. I don't think there's that many good werewolf stories out there. I think I've got a pretty good one in me that I've written, but I want to like rewrite a better draft of. And it might be about a 4-issue story or maybe like 80 pages or so. Something like that. An LGBTQ comic episode. Sometimes I feel like I'm not plugged in enough to know which things would count as LGBTQ. Oh, you know what I could do at some point? I was saying I liked Alison Bechdel, and I think her book Fun Home would be worthy of an episode at some point. I'll just say this. I do have a lot planned out right now for Comic Tropes episodes. I'm doing them in little blocks, 3 to 4 episodes of somewhat similar ideas. Right now, I'm doing artists that work in the mainstream, but have very distinctive, unique styles. Styles that wouldn't have been the house style 20 or 30 years ago. Then I'm going to do several Batman artists that I love that I don't feel have been discussed a lot, like Norm Breyfogle and maybe even Alan Davis could fit in there, but definitely Jim Aparo. And then I'm going to do a block of manga, influential manga stuff. Yeah, I've got like 3 there that I want to do. And then after that, I might do a series where I take a look at artists or writers that I did early on, like 10 years ago with my show, that I feel I could do a better job with now. Maybe a better Frank Miller episode, a better Garth Ennis episode, a better Naoki Urasawa episode. So, yeah. There's a lot that I've got. Oh, excuse me. I was also going to do about 3 episodes of really influential, cool European comics. I've been wanting to do a Hugo Pratt episode for a very long time, and I keep putting it off. It might be finally time to get to there. And if I can find my Jaws manga, I've for years been wanting to do a comparison between the Japanese Jaws manga, American like shark horror comic with this cool Richard Corbin shark story in Erie, I think it was, and British shark horror with Hookjaw, which is a really cool like 70s book. Chrissy likes Moomins. I won a Moomin for her out of Crane Game a few months back. I was really proud of that. I didn't know that was LGBTQ friendly. I didn't know that. Jaws is very likely at this point. We've narrowed things down. It almost definitely wasn't in the basement because I had to move all that stuff, and I think I flipped through enough to be sure that it was not down there. And it probably was unlikely that I ever would have taken it down there. Chrissy double-checked a bunch of boxes that we have upstairs that it could have been in, and it wasn't in any of those. So it's very likely all the other manga that I got at that same time is in this room. So I very likely took all that manga out in this room and put it somewhere that I would have considered safe and then lost track. So it's very likely in this room. Black women comic book writers and artists. Sure. Yeah. I'd be down for doing something like that. Favorite food? Steak. If I could have steak all the time, I would. That's not good for you. Weren't you going to do a hot sauce shot episode of Tropes? You know what I was thinking of doing is there was a series of hot sauces made for Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. So I reached out to their publicity guy and said, hey, how about we do a hot sauce or hot ones type of episode where I interview Patrick Horvath and we each try the Beneath the Trees hot sauces, but I never heard back. So maybe they didn't like that idea. I thought that was funny. Yeah, I should do more about guys like Alan Moore and Frank Miller. I could do episodes about Jack Kirby forever. I'll tell you that. Yeah, I mentioned it again last week. It was called Jade Foods. They made 4 hot sauces for Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. IDW is also doing a food coming up with the Rocketeer. They're doing a whiskey. They're doing Rocketeer whiskey. So they're sort of doing that stuff. Probably wasn't going to see that one, no. Anyway, look, I think I should wrap this up because I got to get up early for work tomorrow. It's an early day, and I'd like to do at least a little bit of script writing for the next Comic Tropes episode tonight. But I'll tell you, it would really be lovely if you haven't seen it, if you could go watch the episode that I just uploaded on Comic Tropes today. Consider giving it a like or a comment or even sharing it on social media. Because like I say, it's definitely underperforming, but I think it's a good one. I'm proud of it. I think it's really cool. Is there anything else I've got to talk about? I don't think so. I had fun answering these questions. I really had a good... I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. But yeah, trust me, all I can say is I am super hard at work, always creating more Comic Tropes for you guys. And if I ever feel like I can carve out some time to do some writing, maybe I can do some behind the scenes vlogging or blogging about it for extra content. Anyway, you've all been wonderful tonight. I had a fantastic time. Thank you so much. Keep reading comics. No, tell you what, you haven't gotten this in a minute. Double salute. Yeah, you earned it.